But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland. There's some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well. Some fog across the central part of England and Wales. Some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the Highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good evening, this is Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. On the show tonight. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says he would ban mass Muslim prayers, whilst a Tory MP has reached a week of backlash after calling scenes at Trafalgar Square acts of domination. Also, From anti-Semitism under the guise of feminism to political events being heckled by pro-women groups, are our universities becoming totally intolerant? Also, the Girl Guides are infighting over a ban on boys who identify as girls. And a shocking exhibition in Margate depicting anti-Semitic art and Nazi imagery left a Jewish visitor feeling deeply distressed and kicked out for raising concerns. In an exclusive, Zoe Strimple will share what happened here live on GB News. And of course, we've got comedians answering some crazy culture conundrums from our live studio audience. But first, the news with Bethany Elsey.
Josh, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 7 o'clock. Iran is warning it will destroy energy facilities across the Gulf and completely shut off the Strait of Hormuz following an ultimatum from the US president. Donald Trump has threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if the key shipping lane isn't reopened within 48 hours. Meanwhile, more than 180 people have been injured in southern Israel after Iran bombarded 2 towns yesterday, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying it's a miracle no one was killed. A further 15 have been hospitalised after cluster munition hit Tel Aviv. Israel has blown up a main bridge linking southern Lebanon to the rest of the country, it says, to target Hezbollah. More than 1,000 people have been killed there and 1 million displaced since the conflict began. The government says Israel's warnings about Iran developing long-range missiles capable of reaching the UK are exaggerated. Israel's army chief has claimed Tehran has developed weapons capable of travelling up to 2,500 miles, putting some European capitals within range. It's after Iran fired 2 missiles towards the British-American military base on Diego Garcia. But the Housing Secretary Steve Reed insists the UK is safe.
There is no assessment that I'm aware of that Iran is either targeting or could, even if they wanted to, target the UK directly. If they did, and there is no assessment of this, we have one of the finest militaries in the world, despite the fact the previous government admits they hollowed it out. We have one of the finest militaries in the world, perfectly capable of protecting and defending the United Kingdom, which is precisely what we're doing in the Middle East today, and why we've been able to take out nearly 50 drones using UK military capability in the region today. So don't underwrite and undervalue our military. They're one of the best in the world, and we should have full confidence in them.
The government says there are no plans to introduce a temporary cap on profits for energy companies and fuel retailers. It comes after Lord Walker, that's Labour's cost of living czar, suggested ministers should consider imposing a cap to prevent companies exploiting exceptional market conditions created by the conflict in the Middle East. Sir Keir Starmer will hold an emergency Cobra meeting tomorrow to discuss plans to mitigate the economic impact of the war. And there's lots happening in football this evening. Manchester City have won the Carabao Cup, beating Arsenal 2-0 in the final at Wembley. Midfielder Nico O'Reilly scored both goals within 5 minutes in the second half. And there's been chaos in the Tyne and Wear derby this afternoon. Despite a major police presence outside St James's Park in Newcastle, clashes between supporters led to one fan being arrested and another taken to hospital. The match also had to be paused in the second half after reports of discriminatory abuse from within the crowd directed at Sunderland defender Gertrude, with Newcastle vowing to track down those responsible. Sunderland won that game 2-1. You're up to date for now. I'll be back in an hour's time.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across a spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics, doing our best to bring a bit of common sense to that which has become senseless. Lots to come up tonight, a packed show, including the journalist who infiltrated a splinter group in the Girl Guides trying to let in boys, and the Jewish woman kicked out of an art gallery for calling out anti-Semitism. But first, the Attorney General and one of the UK's most senior Jewish politicians, Lord Hermer, has challenged Kemi Badenoch to declare whether she would object to Jewish prayer in public. It comes after the Conservative leader backed Tory MP Nick Timothy after he called a mass prayer event to mark Ramadan in London's Trafalgar Square an act of domination. Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary Steve Reid came on GB News earlier.
What Nick Timothy said was nothing to do with that. If you looked at what he said, it was talking about domination because there was an act of prayer that was Muslim in public. He said nothing about women at that point, and he singled out Muslims in a way that he has not singled out Hindus, Jews or Christians for doing the same thing. Did he think it was an act of domination when the former Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak held Hindu religious ceremonies outside number 10 Downing Street? Because he didn't say that then, did he? He's just come out and said it now, but Kemi Badenoch is too weak to point out to him that racism will not be tolerated on the Conservative front bench because she's terrified of Nigel Farage. And that's the truth of it. He's running the Tory front bench now, not Kemi Badenoch.
Well, I am now joined by the Labour activist Aisha Ali Khan. Big round of applause, please. Aisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Me and you, we're going to sort this out. We're going to just figure it out for everybody.
For everything.
Let's get it all fixed.
Yes.
So look, you had Steve Reid there, and basically he was saying, and some people would point out there's an hypocrisy here. People weren't calling out the celebration of other religious festivals, like our former Prime Minister. Do you think that that's correct? Because I think different.
So I was actually going to bring up the fact that we've had so many different events, religious events at Trafalgar Square, and I've been one of the organisers for Women's March, and I've organised events at that took place in the square.
But women aren't trying to take over because they've already taken over, so that's the difference.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Josh, on that front. The guest you had earlier, Steve Reid, I think it was, he made some good points, and I was going to say the same thing. We had Diwali. We've had regular annual Diwali events for the last 20 years. We've also had Vaisakhi.
We've had Hanukkah. I was there eating donuts. But do you see what the difference is? There's me having my fourth donut and nearly vomiting, and the imagery of men, a large group of men all praying in unison, plus the realities of what people would argue Islam being a proselytizing religion. Do you see that there is a difference between the two and why people would call out Islam rather than these other events?
Well, it's not people, it's Nick Timothy, and he has had...
Well, I think there's a lot of people who've supported him.
Well, what I would say is that this idea of people coming together to pray and to open their fasts, take place. It was open iftar, so everybody was invited. There was food involved. People obviously had been fasting.
And I don't think. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. It's just, I don't think people have an issue with people coming together, eating food. Everybody loves that. I'll get in on some of that action. But I think it's specifically the imagery here of lines of men, women somewhere else entirely, and the idea that it's this act of domination. And you don't see it, and it is a fact that the Muslim Brotherhood have used this tactic of street praying before to sort of dominate those spaces, and you don't see that with other religions.
Well, I would disagree. This idea that people have come together to pray is we're not taking over the UK. Can I just say, this idea that Muslims are getting together to take over, we can't even agree on one date for Eid, for God's sake. And Eid Mubarak, by the way, to everybody watching.
You OK saying for God's sake, by the way? I don't want you to get in trouble.
No. We can't even agree on a simple thing like having one day to celebrate Eid. There is no way anybody's going to take over.
But there are Muslims in the UK who do want to take over, though. And there are like 30% of Muslims would prefer Sharia law in this country to supersede the laws of the land.
They're not mainstream at all.
30% isn't law.
But Josh, you and I spoke about this before, and if you're going to just talk to people who are going to have these crazy, very fringe views, then that's what you're going to hear. But I obviously interact with Muslims regularly. I live in Keighley, which is a stone's throw from Bradford, by the way. I interact with Muslims all the time. My family family's Muslim, my friends, my community, and not one single person has said we really need to take over the UK. Not one. And it's
but I can point you to 1,000 clips of people who are very much who are very much like, we want to take over. This is part of a plan. And I agree with him. And we had a lovely discussion yesterday. And I think that what the takeaway was, the big disagreement was what you would say is fringe. Other people, including myself, from looking into it, would say actually it's more mainstream than people might realise. But you don't think that's the case?
No, I don't think that's the case. And people say all sorts of crazy things online. It's monetised. People say random crazy things. They'll get the clicks. They'll get obviously clickbait. They'll get people following them and so on. I mean, we saw this with this whole Andrew Tate with Louis Theroux's documentary, where boys were saying crazy, outrageous, misogynistic things just to get the views. And obviously, look...
But the Muslim Brotherhood have laid it out in the 1990s as part of their document, and a strategy was, we are going to go in, it's not necessarily going to be about, you know, fighting wars, it's going to be through the institutions, through population growth. There is a plan by the Muslim Brotherhood that has permeated parts of British Muslim society, and we are seeing that plan sort of come to fruition. And some people would say the sight of these men is sort of almost like the end point of it, or the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning.
You know, this argument I hear of Muslims breeding like rabbits and having all these children.
I've got 5 kids, so I can't speak. Okay.
Well, I've only got the one, and all the young Muslims I know. I mean, my son's 22. It's a miracle if I can get him off the PS5 and get ready and go to university on time.
So you think that's how we can defeat the Muslim Brotherhood, is just chuck some free PlayStations out there?
The Muslim Brotherhood is a bunch of people, men, who get together and they mourn and they complain and they put out these crazy statements that are not coming, it's not going to go anywhere. And if we give them the attention, they're just attention seekers, if we give them that attention and we're give them the importance, they're not important to...
But they are, but they do have an impact. And we see, you know, you have the Batley School teacher in hiding for his life. I mean, to be honest, when you started talking about the Muslim Brotherhood, I got scared for you, because I think one of the things that's underappreciated is what we would term moderate Muslims. Yeah. You would say mainstream Muslims, that's where the argument is different. But moderate Muslims who are making these points, who actually have received threats from within the Muslim community and are being silenced.
Well, I mean, we spoke about the Batley School situation, and I feel so bad for this young teacher, and he's still in hiding. But what people don't realise, that there were 3 teachers that were basically sacked at the same time, one of whom was a Muslim as well, and they were teaching materials, and it was the duty of the head teacher to have stood his ground and said, no, I'm not going to sack.
I agree with you, but people did make death threats, and there are real people that this teacher is in hiding of, and you could argue, OK, let's go, well, OK, this is a small percentage of the British Muslim community who would go... Yeah, but how many are sympathetic to that tiny minority? If you look at the reality on the ground, people are seeing a much more aggressive form of Islam taking place, and they can see it with their own eyes. So I guess my argument would be that 2 things. One is that they're just what people are seeing. They can see this aggressive Islamization going on. That's the debate. The other point, and I would like to get to, is this idea that to be able to call it out suddenly makes you a bigot. And I think that's also a concern. Nick Timothy, he's an MP, he's allowed an opinion, this is what he thinks, yet he was instantly shut down, including our Prime Minister, trying to say that he's a bigot for doing so. We're talking about an ideology here. This isn't about racism.
So I'm going to address 2 things. The first one being that people are calling, you know, this Islamization and so on. Majority of the Muslims I know are very, very law-abiding. They appreciate living here. Obviously, I was born here. This is my home. I don't know any other home. So when we hear people say go home, it's because of comments by Nick Timothy, who's promoting this agenda that we're taking over, and we're not. But I'm going to come to the point. But going back to people, Muslims calling out things like the hijab, for example. About 10 years ago, there was an open letter. I was a signatory to that letter, basically saying that there is no requirement for young girls to wear the hijab in primary schools. And I actually did a little bit of a sort of survey, a little bit of a research. I spoke to a few schools, not just in the UK. I contacted schools in the UAE, Pakistan, Turkey, and I basically said, is the hijab part of your uniform in your primary schools? And they said no, right? They said no. And
but so what we are seeing, though...
So then it made me realise that the primary schools and so the people here have allowed this to happen. Not the Muslims, not the mainstream Muslims, the people that have demanded this when there's no requirement in Islam, by the way, for young girls to wear the hijab, and I'm giving this as an example, by the way, it's the institutions that have failed,
but
not only the schools and the local authorities.
But I don't think it's the schools that are saying to young Muslim girls, wear the hijab.
No,
this is coming from the Muslim community.
But they've given in to the demands of a very small amount of people, and that's where I and a few of the people have recognised that we need to be more robust. We need to stand up and say no.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, we do have to go, but I just want to say that is a fantastic example. You might also say that it's a small group of people who are praying in public at the Trafalgar Square, and we need to be robust, and our institutions need to stand up to that.
If we say no to Muslim events, then
well, I'm not saying no to Muslim events. There's a difference between that form of public prayer.
An iftar or a prayer like Jummah, whatever, is a Muslim event. If we say no, then at what point do we draw the line? Do we then end up saying no to Jewish events, Hindu events,
well, maybe there's just no
events?
prayer at all. It's a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Please, a massive round of applause, Aisha Ali Khan. Otherwise, we'll just talk about it for 2 hours. There we go. A spokesperson for London Mayor Sadiq Khan said the mayor was proud that thousands of Londoners from all faiths, race and backgrounds united in the heart of the capital. Together, they showed the world that London will always be a city that celebrates and champions our diversity as we build a better and fairer London for everyone. Next on Free Speech Nation, our panel will answer this week's most pressing questions from our live studio audience. See you in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My comedian guests this evening are Steve and Alan Nicholas DeSanto. There they are. How are you both? You all right?
Yeah,
that beard's just out of control.
Yeah, I know. Just keep people away from me. And
yes.
It's working.
Good for you. Are you washing it?
The combing it, that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Over a piece of paper.
No. It starts to smell. How are you, mate? You all right?
I'm all right. Can I plug a show?
Sure.
Wow.
In Banbury, Oxfordshire, next Friday, 27th, and next month in Ohio, the US,
I see.
in
It's
April.
like for our Ohio audience.
Well, potentially, I think we are making inroads into the US market.
What I would do is I'd work on being funny first, and then once I've won the audience over, they'd say, hey, by the way, if you want to see more, come and see me in Ohio. But let's see how that works out.
Yeah.
No pressure, Nicholas. No. So we're going to get some questions from the audience. Our first one's from Jeff.
Hi, Josh.
Hello.
When is GB News going to open a safe space?
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yes, when is GB News going to open a safe space? Jeff, I've been here now 4 and a bit years. I've been asking this for years, that we have like some part of the office that is dedicated so we can bring in our dogs and, you know, to calm us down and whatever.
Support animals.
Yeah, support animals and whatnot. Because Leeds Council, they offered staff safe spaces ahead of Nigel Farage's visit, sparking criticisms of inconsistency. Farage called it woke, while the council said the emails were informal. Leeds City Council have said in response to the Farage counselling story that the emails were between staff, so they don't represent the formal communication. Still, the idea, Jeff, that anybody needs a safe space because Nigel Farage is coming into the same city as them is surely beyond ridiculous, let alone elected officials.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic. I mean, we're all gathered here, down in the basement, in a very safe space, and there's no advertising, nobody would know we're here, so we're very safe down here.
That's it. OK, I don't think you've understood what safe spaces are, Jeff.
You made it sound less
yes,
safe.
we're not talking about nuclear war, although the way things are going, that might also be quite good that we're here down in the basement. But yeah, this idea that these council workers and elected officials, they need a safe space because Nigel Farage is going to come to their city.
Yeah, it's not that terrifying. The only people who need a bit of a heads up are local milkshake providers, just in case the wrong uns turn up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People, it's weaponising the victim status, isn't it? Like, oh, even just by having someone in the same postcode that disagrees with me, I don't feel safe, I need to feel safe. It's, sorry to get overly nerdy about this, but this is like my big bugbear at the moment. Nietzsche had this whole thing about the transvaluation of values. Olden days, being strong and brave and victorious were good, and it slowly moves across to being kind. And we've left open like an open goal where people now say, oh, if you think you're kind, then you need to protect me because I don't feel safe. And that's the world that we live in now. The victims have all of the power. And the problem is, no real victims are happening. You're not a victim. They don't send out these emails if Green people are having a protest, or if you got like the Lib Dems turn up. No one's going like, quick, warn Alton Towers, he's nearby. But no one needs a protection from anyone. But if you disagree with someone and you suddenly make yourself into the victim, all of a sudden we have to swoop round and make you feel better.
I'll tell you what, this Nietzsche fellow sounds quite insightful. I'm going to follow him on X, see what he's going on about.
Who's under something?
What do you think?
I can't measure up to the lofty teachings of Nietzsche, but speaking of safe spaces, actual safe spaces, as we were speaking, people in Israel receive sirens because a war is going on.
People
they
are being
have
killed
to
over there.
run to an actual safe space, and that's a real anxiety. And people in Iran, they, in the same manner, they have a lot of anxiety because they have to run to these shelters. But there aren't any shelters in Iran because their government said, for 47 years, they said death to America, death to Israel. They never thought a war might actually happen. So that is a real problem. Now, people who have a problem with the visit from arguably the head of the biggest or most popular opposition party, what would they do when Nigel, or if Nigel, and when Nigel becomes the Prime Minister?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
they'll all be sent on holidays at taxpayers' expense.
Well, I think the idea is that he would shut that down. So we're going to... we'll see. Right, well, our next question is from Hugh.
Hi, Josh. My question is, why don't the football shirts have the St George's Cross on them?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't the football shirts have the St George's Cross on them? So England have removed the woke, I don't know if people, I don't like using the word woke, but the multicoloured St George's Cross from their 2026 World Cup shirts, returning traditional white and red. But the collar now reads, happy and glorious after fan and political backlash. The FA will vet future kit designs more strictly. So they've just got rid of the flag entirely.
Yeah.
The point I would like to make before we get into it is this whole people say, oh, raise the flags, and they're raising the St George's flags, and that is tied to a kind of the racism that we saw in the 70s. And then you say, well, look, let's reclaim that flag, be proud of it as English people, as British people as well with the Union Jack. Yet, if we can't even be proud enough to have it on our national sports team for our national sport, then we're moving in the wrong direction, surely, Steve.
Yeah, this is people saying they don't feel safe because of the flag. There's a reason why I did the lecture in the first section. I'm coming back to it on every story tonight. It's this victimisation thing, like, oh, no, you have to take down the flag because I don't feel safe near it. It is just a piece of fabric. It's just a small thing on the back of footballers. And if ever there's a group of people who can have that flag on their kit, it would be footballers, because they are the national team, and also they're not going to be that racist. Because they're footballers.
I say that racist.
Well, you get the odd one. You get the odd one. There's been the odd court case. But you know what I mean? If ever there's, a progressive bunch of people who are really well integrated and multicultural, it's football, isn't it? They've also got campaigns to get racism out of football. That's your good test ground.
Yeah.
So they should, of course. I mean, where does this end? If you're not allowed to have the St George's Cross, I guess calling them the England team seems a little bit nationalistic.
That's going to have people running for the safe room.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah. So, you have to rebrand them as something that's not England anymore. Yeah. No, originally they changed the colour, apparently, though, not in a woke kind of get rid of the colours of the St George's Cross. They wanted it to reflect the colours of the kit that was worn by the 1966 winning team. Why remind yourself of a team that actually won when you clearly won't? It feels like a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, is this going to be the beginning, Nicholas, of a sort of raise the football shirts campaign across the country, and you're going to have sort of drunk, overweight men taking off their tops?
That's the thing, because football in this country is the only occasion where it's socially acceptable to raise and wave the flag.
Yeah,
right?
they've taken that away.
And they tampered with that flag on the football shirt. And they've done this in the banknotes as well. First they tampered it, made the cross of St. George's on the back of the collar woke. Then when there was rightly an uproar, they just said, you know what, let's remove the flag. Just like they removed all English men and women of value off the banknotes, they're going to do that. They've done it with the passports already. And all of this woke nonsense has caused an outrage, and rightly so, but it has detracted from the other equally important outrage. The shirt cost £125.
That is the real disgusting element.
And mostly working-class people buy that.
Well, I think it's just a missed opportunity, which is a real shame. Our next question is from Vahid. If you've got the mic, can we have the mic for Vahid? Is that for Vahid?
My name's Valen.
Oh, sorry, we've written it down wrong. Valen?
Yeah.
Hello, Valen. Nice to meet you. Hello.
Why are the police dropping technology that works too well?
Why are the police scrubbing the technology that works too well? No, you know what this is? We've just messed up the order. We had it written perfectly down. But yes, this is a story of Essex police. They paused facial recognition after it flagged black people more often than others. The system rarely misidentified people not on watch lists. Algorithm updates and new policies mean the LFR will be redeployed. Reading this story, Steve, and you're the person to come to when it's numbers and algorithms and all that weird virgin.
You can say nerd.
All that nerdy.
Virgin.
Well, no, all
Did
that
you say
nerdy,
virgin?
yeah, all that virgin stuff. It seems like the problem was this was too accurate when it involved black people.
Yeah.
And that's why they pulled it. It was more accurate for black people than other ethnicities. And they said, well, that's not fair that it's working so well with black people, so we're just going to pull it.
Yeah, because it's not... If you look at the story, there's no reason to be offended. It's not saying, oh, I'll tell you who it thinks are criminals. If you give it a face and an actual picture of someone, it can match certain people better. Yeah. Just by the way that it analyses faces. I don't know how it gets... it'll vector your face and it has all these triangles or whatever, and it'll match it. But I think Essex Police have realised this will be an unspinnable PR thing. So this becomes not a nerd virgin story that I should be talking about technology. This is PR. They realise this is going to look bad. You better change the algorithm to try and bury the story.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Can you top that level of virgin stuff that you just talked about?
I've seen a lady.
Okay, let's not go there. But the thing is, there's this scene in the movie Horrible Bosses where the three protagonists want to kill their bosses. So they go to the seedy bar in a very dangerous area and find a certain Michael J. Fox, dodgy looking, and say, hey, can you help us kill our bosses? And he's like, just because I'm black, you just presumed and
Michael
assumed...
J. Fox?
I think so.
I don't think so.
Sorry, okay.
Unless Back to the Future is a very different film.
Not him. Sorry, the other Fox, the Fox with double X. Who's the black guy?
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx. Beg your pardon. Sorry, the order of the questions were...
Sorry for his language.
Okay. The order of the questions just tipped me off.
Go and see him in Ohio, by the way. No, we're not sure if that's the actual state.
I won't be talking about horrible bosses in Ohio. But the point is, he says, just because I'm black, you just presumed and assumed that I'm a criminal.
Yeah, there was a same joke in between us as well.
Exactly. But I thought, maybe Hollywood, I'm going to America, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
helps if you get the actor right.
I'll get there. I need a safe space from these interruptions. So he says, just because I'm black, you thought I'm a criminal? And they say, well, aren't you? And says, yeah, but that's not the point. So here, I got there. So here, we have an AI who's very good at catching black criminals. And they say, oh, this is an issue of fairness, because if you are an Albanian criminal, you are less likely to be caught by this system. But what's the problem? Because it still does catch the criminals, but because it doesn't... Some criminals, but still criminals, right? If that's the point. But just because it doesn't do it in an equal manner among all different races, they're calling it down. So the state and the overlords are hell-bent on this surveillance apparatus. We opposed it. People like libertarians, liberal-minded people opposed it. And it only took going after one of their client minorities and messing up with the narrative for them to shut it down, ironically, because it does work.
I'll tell you which criminal would get away with it. Michael J. Fox.
But not Jamie Foxx.
This is terrible at identifying Michael J. Fox. At least you aren't good at identifying him. At least you're not the AI. Essex Police have commented saying, we have revised our policies and procedures and are now confident that we can start deploying this important technology as part of the policing operations to trace and arrest wanted criminals. We will continue to monitor all results to ensure there is no risk of bias against any one section of the community. Look, our final question is from Via. Hello.
Hi, Josh.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, really. Who's failed white boys?
Oh, who's failed white boys? That sort of sounded like a song. White boys. Who's failed white boys? So Lord Till will tell Sir Keir Starmer that white working class boys remain England's worst performing group in schools. Research shows persistent low GCSE results, high exclusions and poor post-16 progression, driven by class and family stability rather than race. The CSG and government initiatives aim to address these entrenched disadvantages. This is a report. It came out 5 years ago. It created a big hoo-ha where he basically came out and said, yes, racism is real and it exists, but actually might not be the reason for some of the results that we are seeing. And everyone went, you're racist, even though I think that nearly everybody there was an ethnic minority who actually worked on the report. But the main things that he identified, which seem to make very much common sense, are class, geography, and the situation of the family. Those make a lot of sense. To look into those, and now 5 years later, because everybody said, oh, this is racist, you can't do this, now there's still this problem, which very much includes white young men who are not doing very well.
Yeah, I think class is the big issue, and then within everyone who suffers due to the class status, there are certain ways to be lifted out of that, and the only ones that are left behind are if you've got people who are paying attention to gender issues, I guess the girls get lifted up as well. If there's an ethnicity issue, they get lifted up. So you're left with one group who doesn't really have a lot of additional boost to get out of this class disadvantage, and it's the white working class boys. They also suffer from the fact that they're kind of the villain in everyone's narrative. Being white has to be portrayed as the villain, being a man, and you know what these boys grow up into is being a man, and I refer you back to the victim thing. In that drama triangle, you've got your persecutor, victim and saviour, and you have to have someone playing that persecutor role. So the problem is you've been cast as the bad guys. No one wants to help you.
Yeah, it's a tragedy what's happening to these young men, how they're just being totally ignored.
Yeah, so much for that systemic privilege or white privilege. Ironically, this report, which has now been, it was 5 years ago, it was commissioned on the back of Black Lives Matter, and the author, Lord Sewell, is not white himself, but he says family stability, class geography, these are one of the main factors and not necessarily the race. Ironically, working-class white people are doing worst at school.
Yeah. Well, next on Free Speech Nation, there's been growing concern about anti-Semitism creeping into our schools and universities. But when is enough enough? We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Therese has been bringing some very unsettled weather to the Canary Islands in recent days, and we'll continue to see some strong winds and potentially some flooding here over the next day or two, particularly for the western Canary Islands, but there'll be some showers for Madeira too. Iberia, though, will settle down with plenty of sunshine for Spain and Portugal. 1 or 2 showers for the central Med, particularly southern parts of Italy, the Balkans, Greece and Turkey. A few thunderstorms perhaps as well. But the worst of the weather, the thundery showers at least, will be across Tenerife over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We'll see some clear spells tonight, but it's all changed through Monday as further wet and windy weather spreads across the north of the UK. The south, though, will hold on to some high pressure. In the meantime, a weak weather front will sink southwards through the rest of Sunday evening time, giving a little light and patchy rain in places, but largely just cloudy skies for a time. And overnight, it will generally be dry. However, wintry showers will continue across northern Scotland, combined with some strong blustery winds. It will be a cold night here. Temperatures -2, -3 in the Glens of Scotland. Towns and cities generally holding up just above freezing, but a patchy frost and some fog patches first thing on Monday morning almost anywhere across the UK. But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland. There's some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well. Some fog across the central part of England and Wales. Some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the Highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain,
with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. London Metropolitan University's seminar, it has sparked criticism from linking Zionism to sexual violence. Some say it echoed anti-Semitic tropes and misrepresented the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Child and Women Abuse Studies Unit organised the lecture on supremacist formations and sexual violence, which opponents say erase Palestinian agency and normalise prejudice. The controversy adds to wider concerns about rising anti-Semitism on UK campuses. So I'm now joined by the spokeswoman for Feminists Against Anti-Semitism, Freya Papworth. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I read the report this week. It was shocking. Someone from your organisation went to the seminar, and the stuff that was coming out seemed to me just to be virulent Jew hate, essentially.
Absolutely, yes. One of our incredible volunteers, Susie, she's in the audience today. Okay. She went undercover to report on this seminar. To say it was critical of Israel would be kind. It was rehashing ancient blood libels, using the language of feminism and of academia to sanitise it and regurgitate that to students. It was conspiracy theory, completely.
Yeah, it was basically, the gist is that the evil Israelis, aka Jews, are trying to control Palestinian wombs and wipe out these and with miscarriages and trying to stop access to medical aid, and this is all part of some deliberate policy to wipe out. Now, what this seminar, I imagine, didn't answer is that there's a larger population now in Gaza than there was before October 7th. Yeah. That's what people can never... When they say genocide, when they come up with this kind of... this rubbish, frankly, as you say, tying into this ancient anti-Semitic blood libel that Jews are trying to kill babies, they can't ever answer that. There are more Gazans today than there were 2 and a bit years ago.
Absolutely. They just refuse to acknowledge the truth, and they refuse to give Palestinians any sort of agency as if they are in control in any way, shape or form as to what happens to them. Everything that happens is Zionist, Israeli, caused, it's evil, and it's another way of shoring up the pillars of genocide. That Israelis and Zionists target Palestinian wombs. That is part of the formations of Zionism. That's one of the main tenets of Zionism, apparently, that they target midwives on purpose and literally unborn babies.
And this is being taught to our youth.
To our youth.
Sorry, yes.
Well, I think what's so important to know about this is the work that this centre does, the research and policy work. If you want to work within this area to help women around the world who are experiencing sexual violence and conflict, you need to go and do these courses. This is promoting the MA that they do there. If you want to be involved in actually helping women, you have to go through this process. And in order to do so, you have to say yes. This is what's happening. You have to believe these lies. And therefore, how do you actually help Palestinian women who are suffering if you cannot actually name where the suffering is coming from?
Well, exactly. There's a report I read about this morning that came out from the UN that says, and I imagine that this is the kind of people who've been through this kind of academia, that unbelievably says that it's the war in Israel that, by the way, Gazans under Hamas, that they started, but that is leading now to a proliferation of child marriages up to sort of 14-year-old, and lots of these marriage certificates being given out, and they're basically blaming Israel for Gazan society allowing all of this child abuse.
Yeah, and what's so shocking is we already knew that child marriage was happening in Gaza and in Palestine before the war. This was already an issue. Women's lives in Palestine are not great. Obviously, it's an Islamic, religion that rules. Women are under Sharia law. Child marriage was already a problem. War is awful. All of these things get worse during war, so this is inevitable that this would happen. And to frame it as being purely down to Israel and to Zionism is there's no logic to it. There's no reason to it. It's just hate.
Yeah, well, it's just Jew hate doesn't need logic, really. But the interesting thing is you're seeing it, and you see this within the wider left movement and certainly the far left, but within feminism, there's been this kind of... It's a very strange thing to see feminists denying the rape of Jewish women.
Yes.
That seems incredible to me.
Yes, and that's why our organisation came together, is because we all worked within sort of feminism. We gave our time, our money, our energy to feminist causes. And when October 7th happened, we turned to look to our institutions, our organisations, our groups to speak out against it, to say that rape is never resistance, and they refused to. And to see that this is mainstream feminism, that this is, if you want to be involved in it, then you have to renounce Zionism if you're a Jew, and definitely not stand with your Jewish sisters if you're not a Jew. If that's the rule.
I mean, do you think there has been a split within feminism over this matter? Because I know lots of feminists very much who have come out in support of Jews and have condemned this, but they're also. Would you put any percentage to this sort of 50-50, is it?
It's interesting. There was already a split a few years ago, obviously, with the trans rights stuff coming along and the gender-critical feminism, so there was already a split within feminism in itself. But there's been a really strong grassroots movement that has really grown up over the years, and we are a force to be reckoned with. But yes, this has split it. I don't know if it's 50-50. What I would say, which is really lovely, when we put on our first event, which happened last year in Brighton, we thought we might get 20, 30 people and the corner of a bar somewhere to be able to talk about these issues. We got cancelled with our first place, the first venue. By the time we held the event, we had 250 women in the room and a waiting list. There is an appetite to talk about this and to push back against the anti-Semitism within feminism. But we're definitely on the outside trying to get in to these kind of organisations to change them.
Well, well done for calling this out. Well done to your colleague for being there and for watching that, frankly, total offensive rubbish. Big round of applause for Feminists Against Antisemitism, Freya Patworth. GB News has approached the London Metropolitan University for comment, but it is yet to receive a comment back. On their website, they state that the university recognises the paramount importance of freedom of speech and academic freedom. Next on Free Speech Nation, how far would you go to defend free speech? One student says speaking up turned them into the most hated person on campus. See you in 2 minutes.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, a student at University College London says they become the most hated person on campus after hosting a controversial women's rights event. The organiser claims protests, online abuse and backlash from the Students' Union followed the talk, which focused on biological sex and free speech. I'm now joined by its author, the creator of that event, Samiksha Bhattacharjee. Is that Bhattacharjee?
Bhattacharjee.
Bhattacharjee! Big round of applause! Samiksha, don't cancel me for the way I pronounced your name there.
We don't do cancel culture here.
We don't do cancel culture. I am essentially illiterate. So, I read the story in the Telegraph. I knew about this event because I saw it featured. Your guest was Connie Shaw, who features on GB News many times and works for the Free Speech Union, a wonderful advocate for women's rights and many other issues, incredibly eloquent, and yet before the event even started, there was sort of a poster with she was the devil and...
Yeah, that's essentially what happened. You said it was controversial. I don't think it's controversial to host an event on biological sex, essentially, which is what it was. It was a free speech event, and we had backlash, we had students commenting and essentially saying, because I posted a video initially saying, can I be a man? According to UCL, my university, yes. Which is true. I can be a man because I've registered myself as a man, so now I'm a man according to my university.
I can see why some people are going to take umbrage. Not that you're wrong, by the way, of course.
Yeah, and absolute hell was unleashed, essentially, because apparently I was marginalising certain communities and creating a space for violence. I don't get how hosting a conversation on free speech, talking about freedom of expression, which is incredibly important in universities, was dangerous because, you know, we have this culture in university where certain things, if it goes against the campus orthodoxy, is not allowed to be said. And I don't think that should be the case, you know. I think that people should be able to debate and discuss. I'm paying 10k a year to go to university to learn about history, politics and economics, which is my course, and what I'm essentially getting is a masterclass in Marxist critiques and groupthink, and we're essentially creating an entire generation, coddling them so that when they go into the workforce, they aren't able to meet and discuss with people who disagree with them. This is UCL, the 9th best university in the world. So it's not some Mickey Mouse university that I'm talking about.
And they can't let a debate happen or a talk happen that says that men cannot biologically change sex, which is a fact.
Exactly, and you know, they infiltrated our event, they came in, they were reading AI-generated, probably, scripts, eyes glued to their phone as if they were afraid of a single unscripted thought telling them they needed a script to tell them why they're offended, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. The event was called Transgenderism and the Right to Offend, which is an incredibly important right to have. We need to have the right to offend, you know, and they've proved it through their protests that, yes, this right is incredibly important.
Well, but I mean, it's amazing that you're here, that you're so vocal about it, because the response you had afterwards, your treasurer quit, I believe, and as you say in this article, you've become this sort of pariah figure at university.
Yeah, and I don't understand why, because I shouldn't be, you know, and there are people who come up to me and they do say that I'm sorry that you have to go through this. There is a silent majority at university, you know, who don't want to be so vocal about this, but they do silently agree because they're afraid. They're afraid that graduate recruiters aren't going to employ them. And, you know, we're already going through a youth unemployment crisis. You know, people want to get onto the job ladder, but quite frankly, these protesters don't want to get jobs. They're probably going to stay unemployed, so they don't care, you know.
That's going to endear them to you. But do you think it's changing? Because at least this debate was allowed to happen a few years ago, that the student union would be able to ban you.
Yeah, there was a meeting for hours. They were basically discussing how to legally shut down our event, and the president said, there is nothing we can do legally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have to have a law telling us why our event shouldn't be shut down.
Well, I applaud your bravery, I applaud your passion, and I've got good news for you. Coming on GB News is going to really help sort all of that out. They're not going to take offence at all. Anyway, big round of applause, please. Samisha Bonachaji. Look at me getting it right there. A UCL spokesperson said, we have a long-standing commitment to freedom of speech and to enabling open debate on campus. It's not accurate to suggest that the Students' Union UCL opposed the event. In fact, the Students' Union ensured that it could go ahead safely, lawfully and in code with the UCL's Code of Freedom, Practice of Freedom of Speech. That's the end of the first hour. So much more to come over the next hour. Stick with us. See you in 2 minutes.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We'll see some clear spells tonight, but it's all changed through Monday as further wet and windy weather spreads across the north of the UK. The south, though, will hold on to some high pressure. In the meantime, a weak weather front will sink southwards through the rest of Sunday evening time, giving a little light and patchy rain in places, but largely just cloudy skies for a time. And overnight, it will generally be dry. However, wintry showers will continue across northern Scotland, combined with some strong blustery winds. It will be a cold night here. Temperatures -2, -3 in the Glens of Scotland. Towns and cities generally holding up just above freezing, but a patchy frost and some fog patches first thing on Monday morning almost anywhere across the UK. But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland, though some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well, some fog across the central part of England and Wales, some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the Highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van. This camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. We'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including an exclusive interview with a Jewish woman who says she was kicked out of an exhibition showcasing anti-Semitic art and Nazi symbols. Plus, the Girl Guides are infighting over a ban on boys who identify as girls. But first, we're going to get a news update from Bethany Elsey.
Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 8 o'clock. Iran is warning it will destroy energy facilities across the Gulf and completely shut off the Strait of Hormuz following an ultimatum from the US president. Donald Trump has threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if the key shipping lane isn't reopened within 48 hours. And as the conflict continues, more than 180 people have been injured in southern Israel after Iran bombarded 2 towns yesterday, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying it's a miracle no one was killed. A further 15 have been hospitalized after cluster munition hit Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, Israel has blown up a main bridge linking southern Lebanon to the rest of the country, it says, to target Hezbollah. It's the 4th bridge to be destroyed in the last 10 days. More than 1,000 people have been killed and 1 million displaced in Lebanon since the conflict began. The government says Israel's warnings about Iran developing long-range missiles capable of reaching the UK are exaggerated. Israel's army chief has claimed Tehran has developed weapons capable of travelling up to 2,500 miles, putting some European capitals within range. It's after Iran fired 2 missiles towards the British-American military base on Diego Garcia, but the Housing Secretary Steve Reed insists the UK is safe.
There is no assessment that I'm aware of that Iran is either targeting or could, even if they wanted to, target the UK directly. If they did, and there is no assessment of this, we have one of the finest militaries in the world, despite the fact the previous government admits they hollowed it out. We have one of the finest militaries in the world, perfectly capable of protecting and defending the United Kingdom, which is precisely what we're doing in the Middle East today, and why we've been able to take out nearly 50 drones using UK military capability in the region today. So don't underwrite and undervalue our military. They're one of the best in the world, and we should have full confidence in them.
The government says there are no plans to introduce a temporary cap on profits for energy companies and fuel retailers. It comes after Lord Walker, that's Labour's cost of living czar, suggested ministers should consider imposing a cap to prevent companies exploiting exceptional market conditions created by the conflict in the Middle East. Sir Keir Starmer will hold an emergency Cobra meeting tomorrow to discuss plans to mitigate the economic impact of the war. And there's lots happening in football today. Manchester City have won the Carabao Cup, beating Arsenal 2-0 in the final at Wembley. Midfielder Nico O'Reilly scored both goals within 5 minutes in the second half. And there was chaos in the Tyne and Wear derby this afternoon, despite a major police presence outside St James's Park in Newcastle. Clashes between supporters led to one fan being arrested and another taken to hospital. The match also had to be paused in the second half after reports of discriminatory abuse from within the crowd directed at Sunderland defender Gertruida, with Newcastle vowing to track down those responsible. Sunderland won that game 2-1. You're up to date. I'll be back with more in an hour's time.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. Plenty more to come up in the next hour. But first, a girl guiding group in Thatcham has seen backlash following videos of girls holding slogans such as trans girls are girls. This comes as a row has erupted within the Girl Guides over a ban on transgender girls joining the organisation. The dispute has caused tension among volunteers, with some supporting the ban and others pushing for inclusivity. I'm now joined by journalist Janet Murray. Hey, it's Janet Murray. Janet, you went out and you did a journalism, didn't you?
I did some journalism, indeed, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes,
so let's have a... What happened here? So that video that I mentioned, that's kind of what got you onto this, right?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks back, this video popped up in my Facebook feed, and it was really, really strange. And it was a bunch of young people with their faces covered with signs on that said things like trans girls are girls, we love our trans sisters. They were chucking sharks and whales around the place, and the whole thing was just really creepy. But they were also saying the Guides promise over the top of it. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, if my daughter was in that Girl Guide group, I would take her out immediately, because this is getting young people involved in basically political campaigning.
Trans activism.
Trans activism, basically. Do the parents know about this? Do all of the guide leaders know about this? It was just really odd. So it sent me digging, basically, to find out who was behind this. This was a particular Rangers group in Berkshire. But when I looked into it, I found that actually there were connections with a group called Guiders Against Trans Exclusion. They're an activist group that started after the announcement last year that boys and men were no longer going to be allowed in the Girl Guides. It started, they've had various protests all around the country, and I found a video where they were talking about the activities, and they were saying that they were buying badges, groups of like pro-trans badges for their girl guiding units, that they were encouraging leaders to take them along to protest.
And also younger, by the way, up 5-year-olds, right?
Rainbows.
Rainbows,
like 5 to 7 years old. And I just thought this was unbelievable. And I've managed to get access to some communications that I'm guessing there probably wasn't meant to see. But this showed that some of these guide leaders had actually purchased whole, groups of these badges for their units. They were selling them at official guiding events. And I don't know about you. I mean, you're a dad, aren't you? But do the parents know about this? What do they think about this? It's just...
Well, that's, that's what I believe.
That's one of them, yeah.
That's the logo, yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. My daughter is about to... She's in the Brownies, and she's about to graduate up to the Girl Guides. And, yes, it's a massive concern. And I realise now I'm going to have to actually speak to the Girl Guide leader and say, look, what is your policy on this stuff? Because I don't want her being brainwashed with this stuff at 10 years old. Or any age, frankly. But why are the Girl Guides, do you think, just so... they were sort of dragged kicking and screaming to basically follow the law after the Supreme Court's decision?
Yeah, so when they made the announcement, what was really interesting about it was they were saying things like, we regret to announce, we expect this will really upset people. And actually, I've spoken to lots of guide leaders, to lots of parents who were actually really pleased about it. I spoke to one parent who said, now I can send my child away to guide camp. I wasn't going to send her away because I wasn't worried about my particular guide group, but I was worried about the others. I didn't know if there would be activists in other groups. And actually one Brownie leader that's quoted in my Telegraph investigation actually said, there's no problem, not a single parent has asked me about it in our unit, but when you go to the briefings at Girl Guiding HQ, they make it sound, it's all about how do we get boys in, how do we get boys and men back in, and it's not even occurred to them that there might be parents who are actually really pleased, really relieved about this, and the majority of people don't want this, and they don't want their daughters to have this.
As you're saying, it's a safeguarding issue, surely. Yeah. Getting in 14-year-old boys, they might think they're a girl, but they're 14-year-old males.
Yeah.
Putting them in those kind of spaces with, you know, where I imagine if they are away for the weekend, they'd be all showering and sharing accommodation. Of course, as a parent, you're going to be concerned about that.
Yeah, but it's also the leaders as well. So I came across it during the investigation, for example, somebody who transitioned in their 50s. So you're a man who decides they want to live as a woman in your 50s. What's the first thing you do? Oh, you train as a girl guiding leader and you go and work in your girl guides. And this particular individual had actually disclosed to the girl guiding safeguarding officer that he had been in changing rooms with women, not in girl guiding, I should say, but in other contexts. And the fact that none of this is concerning to Girl Guiding HQ, and I actually posted about that really odd video that I saw, and I'm pretty sure that Girl Guiding HQ would have seen that. But it feels to me, and this is just my opinion, obviously, but it feels to me like possibly they're just looking the other way while this activism is going on. And what they should be doing is upholding the law.
Absolutely. I mean, whether they're looking the other way or whether they're even actively encouraging it at some level, we don't know. But the reality is they have been seemingly very reluctant to actually implement the law. I remember a few years ago there was also a case of someone quite senior within the organisation, I think, who they were basically essentially what we call a transvestite, dressed up in S&M gear, putting photos of themselves online, and also photos of them with guns and whatnot. Now, I would say that's a safeguarding risk. There's quite a few red flags there. I'm not saying that there's any evidence of anything having happened like that, but that sort of, if that's the person that's encouraged to go away for the weekend with my daughter, I'm not into that.
Well, something else that I discovered during this investigation was that they put together a panel, so like a sort of, what do you call it, like a steering group type thing, of 16 people, 2 of the people on it. One of them was a guy who transitioned later in life, hadn't even been a guide leader for very long, and had already disclosed that he liked sharing spaces with women and thought that was absolutely fine. The other one was a Pride event. So what is a Pride event doing on a steering group of 16 people who's supposed to represent the whole of girl guiding? You know, none of this really sits right.
Certainly when we've seen some serious safeguarding failings within other Pride events across the UK. I'm thinking about Sussex. You have Stephen Ireland, who has been convicted of rape, raping a child. You know, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that the whole point is that these are young girls, and you don't, you know, Frank, sorry, but you don't mess around with that. Is my point. Like that is why we have these safeguarding concerns.
It feels very negligent to me.
Yeah. And it's only, I mean, it might only be a tiny amount of trans identifying boys.
But one person is too many.
Yes.
You know, people often say, you know, it never happens, but one is too many, isn't it?
Absolutely. Of course, when it comes to your children, when it comes to the safety of them, over this idea of sort of inclusiveness, we've seen this not just within the Girl Guides, we've seen this in places like the Women's Institute, a very similar story where the law, it wasn't changed, by the way, of course, as people know. It was just ratified. It was just made very clear that men are men and women are women, and women's single spaces, that's what it's meant to be for biological women, only. Yet you have somewhere like the Women's Institute who also have similar concerns. Is that next on your investigative?
Well, no, they've certainly. I mean, they're the same. You know, in terms of they're not focused on their members, on the women members. They're focused on these poor men or these poor boys who can't be part of this organisation that they weren't supposed to be part of in the first place. And it's just all very odd, isn't it?
It's all very odd. And the response you had to this article, it came out today, and it's just, I think people, again, we've kind of known about this for a few years now, talked about this on the show, but I think the more this kind of stuff comes out to the general public, I think they're quite shocked by it, actually.
Yeah, it went online about 7 o'clock, and by about 10 o'clock it had well over 1,000 comments of people just saying, like, enough is enough. We've had enough of this. You know, safeguarding women and children, and particularly children, should be our priority. People's feelings should should not be, that people's identity should not be the priority.
So what do you think the parents of trans children should do? Send them to the appropriate sex, or just have a sort of a trans guide
Just find
service?
other activities for them to do that are appropriate for their sex. I mean, and a question I often ask myself is it must be awful if you have a child who comes to you and says they think that they've got gender dysphoria, or they're struggling with something. It must be awful. But I often find myself thinking, what goes through a parent's head that says, I know, because they know their child is a boy, the doctor told them, what sex they were.
They changed a couple of nappies along the way.
They changed a few nappies, What would cause a parent to not have that regard for other children, for other parents? And I think this has gone through so many different sections of societies, and it's become acceptable, and people are afraid to say the obvious, aren't they? Which is, this is not right, and parents shouldn't be supporting it. Guide leaders shouldn't be supporting it. We shouldn't have to worry about sending our child along to an organisation like Girl Guiding or anything like it, and worry that, the people who are running these groups are not aware or are not, carrying out basic safeguarding. It shouldn't be happening.
Safeguarding and, as your article reveals, indoctrination.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing.
It's scary,
I just want my daughter to be able to make the fire, because I don't know how to do it.
Well, you just want them to have a childhood and go camping and go and pick up sticks.
No, but quite specifically, I want her to learn how to do the fire, because I still can't figure that out. No, I'll get it sorted one day. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Journalist Janet Murray. GB News has approached Thatcher and Rangers for comment, but it is yet to receive a response. A Girl Guiding spokesman said to the Telegraph that the badges were not official Girl Guiding materials, and added, "We recognise the strength of feeling within our organisation about the policy change we had to make following the Supreme Court ruling. We are unable to comment on the action of groups external to Girl Guiding." Next on Free Speech Nation, our panel of comedians will be answering some audience questions, including about the new Saturday Night Live UK. Did you see it? What do you think? See you in 2 minutes.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The thought of war in space now, so forget the Middle East, forget anywhere else, we're going to space for war apparently. The thought of that could only concern the imagination recently of even film directors like George Lucas and Ridley Scott, but get this, a British billionaire, Richard Branson, has recently warned that war could actually be coming to a galaxy not too far away. Speaking at the Spacecom Expo conference, Branson has given an eerie warning that Britain must prepare for war in space and emphasised the need to dominate the industry for the sake of national security. Branson said that we could, quote, hopefully work with the Americans, but be ready to stand on our own 2 feet. With war very much raging on Earth, is speculation about a potential war in space just a sign of an overactive imagination, or is it possibly a reality? Well, with me now is my favourite space enthusiast expert, Andy Lound. Andy, good to see you. We've still got wars going on Earth. Why do we need to go to space and start scrapping it out?
Good morning. There's always been an issue of warfare in space since the first days. I mean, if we want to take it simply as spy satellites, that's a way of actually looking down on the Earth, part of the Open Sky program, which Eisenhower wanted, which is why he was keen for the Russians to get the first satellite up, because then he could declare open skies to spy on each other. And in fact, the idea of using weapons in space is by no means a new idea. If we go back to 1975, Almaz 3, a Salyut space station, the Soviets, as they were at the time, actually had a cannon mounted on the space station in order to test the use of a cannon in space, which they might be able to use, therefore, to take out satellites and other spacecraft. It was tested when the crew came back, for obvious reasons, because it could be dangerous with the recoil. But they did actually test a weapon out in space.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time.
But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. We're going to get some more questions from our audience. Our first one is from John.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is the Saturday night question.
Yes.
And it's very short. Is SNL UK woke?
Is it woke? SNL UK woke? So Tina Fey, she shines as the guest host on Saturday Night Live UK, calming the new cast. Highlights include a Hamlet parody and a sharp weekend update segment. That's according to some people. Other people thought it was a little bit rubbish. Did you have a chance to see it at all?
No, I'm afraid I didn't see it.
OK, well, look, we're going to go now to comedians. We've seen, it's been an interesting reaction to this. I've seen people I like and respect their opinion, and they've said, yeah, it was actually better than I thought. I think a lot of people were put off by a very bad trailer that came out this week that was almost anti-funny. Now, Steve, you have been on a late-night panel show, MASH Report. You, I assume, wrote on it as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard. It's a hard thing to do.
Yes, I mean, so I kind of, it took me back to what it was like to be involved in that process of like doing a pilot, getting a commission, and then doing the first show, and it's all exciting. So I had some massive sympathy for the way people were looking at the show. But you know what? You've heard from people whose opinion you like, who quite thought it was a good show. Let me give you someone whose opinion you don't like saying the same thing. The episode was not a bad episode. There's no two ways around it, because if you're comparing it to the average episode from the American SNL, which these days, you know, it's hit and miss. It's not as if every single sketch is like bang, bang, bang all the way through. As a show, if you get a couple of sketches that are a bit clever and a couple of good one-liners, that's not a bad American one. The UK version scored more highly than the US one.
So I feel like what Steve is saying is the American version is rubbish, and that we held our own with the rubbish. That's the gist.
Well, I think that's the point. It was maybe hit and miss, but it doesn't help, or maybe it's bittersweet, because the standard, for no disrespect to Steve, whom I like and whose work I like, because Steve is not on MASH Report anymore. I understand, but I watch his news clips, and it's because of headliners. We all have.
Steve is a very funny man.
We are all into news, and I do like, and I do like Weekend Update, and he does something in the same manner. And of course, SNL had its own Weekend Update. But Steve N aside, the expectations from British TV comedy, because of the whole woke phenomena, were so low that this one, it was just like that Biden debate when they injected him with some sort of mysterious medicine and he didn't die, and everybody was like, oh, that was wonderful. The expectations were so low that they had to do just okay, and they did, and maybe even more than okay. So overall, I would say they've done okay.
So look, maybe I'm being biased. Maybe I went into it and just thought it was rubbish. I was just cringing. There were a few sketches you thought, well, that's an interesting concept, and then it didn't land, or maybe they're nervous on the first night. Obviously, it's very unfair to judge. I do feel bad. I actually do want it to do well. But at the same time, it feels like they're pulling their punches, and everyone's going, oh, it's brave because they took the mickey out of Prince Andrew. It's like, come on, they're going for the easy targets. There is so much out there in the world that we could take the mickey out of, and it feels like they're not going for the jugular. That's where the comedy is.
Judging by what they're not doing rather than what they did. And I tell you who did like that show, Donald Trump. He's Truth Social, the cold open. So the first episode opens with a sketch about how weak Starmer is. So you know what? If you don't watch the whole show, there's no jokes about Farage or reform. Of course, there's a couple of Trump jokes, but you'd expect he'd be annoyed if there weren't any of that. They pillory how annoying London is. Like, a lot of the topics are the kind of things that if they commissioned a show here, we'd be doing the same topics. Starmer is weak. I'm glad they open with that rather than just some annoying having an attack at the right.
I wonder if it's just because as a comic, I just saw all these missed comedy opportunities. I thought the guy's impression was fine. I thought it was a good concept. It just, for me, didn't really take it far enough. And something like Spitting Image, going back to the 80s. They would have been, you know, they would have thrown in a bit of filth and make people angry. Didn't feel like there's anything in there that people are going to be talking about the next day, really. It feels like there was just, everyone was like, yeah, it was all right.
Really? If in terms of filth, there was 2 uses of the C-bomb.
Yeah,
the sketch, you know, it's pushing. I'm not saying that's like the pinnacle of great comedy. I don't know. I also think it is episode 1. We'll see where it goes. It's more likely to not particularly do well because I don't think as a country we want to watch stuff like that. I never understand the concept of Saturday Night Live. Why don't you pre-record it in the day and make it better with edits? Yeah. I don't know why you just do it live. I don't know why.
I know. Anybody who watches improv will know just how incredibly painful it can be. And, of course, it's all fake anyway. Let's go to our definitely unplanned question from John that definitely wasn't written before and handed to him. That was a joke. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking up. I guess Saturday Night Live is really good, actually.
I thought we were going to talk about his birthday.
Yeah. I'm going to.
Yeah. Is cancer racist and queer-phobic?
Is cancer racist and queer-phobic? Thanks, John, for making it super funny. By the way, I have to say it is John's 80th birthday today. Happy birthday. Big round of applause. He's decided to share part of it with us, which is much appreciated. Happy birthday, mate. You having a nice birthday?
Oh, yes. I've been spending it in Isabella's...
Hold the mic up, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I've been spending it in Isabella's company. Kind of...
OK, let's not get into that particular relationship. I think we've all seen Scent of a Woman. So, yeah, right. Is cancer racist and queer-phobic? So Macmillan will prioritise welfare support for LGBTQ+ and ethnic minority and vulnerable cancer patients. A £16.5 million annual grant funds the initiative to tackle health inequalities and rising demand. Now, what I don't know about this, John, is that my understanding is that there's no discrepancy between people being gay and straight and cancer outcomes. So why on earth are they deciding to prioritise LGB and then the TQI? I suspect it's more about the TQIA+. What do you think? And please don't say anything. I know you're 80 and I know you're always going to get me in trouble. This is your birthday present, OK, as you get to speak now.
Yeah, well, I don't recall ever having been racist, but I suppose it's a matter of a bit. And as an older person, there was a time when I couldn't bend over to tie my shoelaces without a man creeping up.
OK, I just... It's your own fault. No, what on earth? I gave you the opportunity. What is... John, I take back that 80th happy birthday.
Wow.
Steve, please just save me.
These days when I tie my shoe... No, let's not even go down there. No, you're right. Look, Macmillan do a lot of good work, and if you are in a particularly vulnerable place, you need that support. That's what they offer.
They do amazing work.
But I'll tell you who, if there's a group that doesn't have a lot of support, famously, it's going to be everyone who's just been missed off that list. Yeah. Like the lonely epidemic of men. So you've got working-class white boys not doing particularly well, men being thoroughly lonely, and now Macmillan are going, just wait there and just deal with your cancer on your own, will you? Because we're going to see everyone else first. It feels like they've picked the wrong... I'm not sure why, other than just, again, good PR.
Well, again, look, they've got a limited amount of money. They do very good work, but the idea that they're choosing these kind of arbitrary categories to go, this is where we're going to prioritise, as opposed to economic reasons. It's like what we saw with the report on racism before, where they're not actually looking at the real factors that are at play here. There are inequality in outcome when it comes to ethnicity, but it might not be because of ethnicity, as opposed to area, geography, family, these other factors that they're not taking into consideration.
Causes used to be focused, but then they went intersectional, right? So trade unions used to be speaking for the working man, feminists for women, environmentalists for the environment, but then they decided to create this hierarchy of the oppressed and the oppressors. That's why we were hearing from your guest, I understand, Fern, rape becomes an instrument of resistance because the perpetrators are seen as victims themselves, because it's a brown man, so the plight of the Iranian women is ignored, the victims of Asian grooming gangs are ignored, because the perpetrator in that Premier League of oppression or victimhood has a bigger coefficient. And now we see Greta Thunberg, for example, who campaigned and threw that fit in the United Nations against fossil fuels, is demanding the US and the whole world to send fossil fuels to Cuba. But what about the ice cap? What about the
I've got to be
the
very.
North
I've got
Pole?
to say, I'm very impressed, Nicholas, how you managed to get from cancer to Cuba. Congratulations on that, and have a great gig in Ohio. Happy birthday again, John. The charity's chief partnership officer said that Macmillan's new service would offer local financial and wellbeing support to people living with cancer in every part of the UK. I think it is a very worthwhile organisation. It just seems that, unfortunately, it's a little bit misguided. Next on Free Speech Nation, an art exhibition in Margate sparked outrage after a Jewish visitor says they were shouted down and surrounded for speaking out. So where does free expression end and intimidation begin? You do not want to miss this exclusive. See you in 2 minutes.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Therese has been bringing some very unsettled weather to the Canary Islands in recent days, and we'll continue to see some strong winds and potentially some flooding here over the next day or two, particularly for the western Canary Islands, but there'll be some showers for Madeira too. Iberia, though, will settle down with plenty of sunshine for Spain and Portugal. 1 or 2 showers for the central Med, particularly southern parts of Italy, the Balkans, Greece and Turkey. A few thunderstorms perhaps as well. But the worst of the weather, the thundery showers at least, will be across Tenerife over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We'll see some clear spells tonight, but it's all changed through Monday as further wet and windy weather spreads across the north of the UK. The south, though, will hold on to some high pressure. In the meantime, a weak weather front will sink southwards through the rest of Sunday evening time, giving a little light and patchy rain in places, but largely just cloudy skies for a time. And overnight, it will generally be dry. However, wintry showers will continue across northern Scotland, combined with some strong blustery winds. It will be a cold night here. Temperatures -2, -3 in the Glens of Scotland. Towns and cities generally holding up just above freezing, but a patchy frost and some fog patches first thing on Monday morning almost anywhere across the UK. But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland. There's some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well. Some fog across the central part of England and Wales. Some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the Highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. An art exhibition in Margate has drawn criticism for using Nazi imagery and targeting Jewish people. The show, Drawings Against Genocide by Matthew Collins, features images linking Israel and Jewish individuals to violence. The Community Security Trust and public figures have condemned it, whilst the artist says the work is political commentary. It has caused a big backlash, with many calling it hate speech. Well, I am now joined by the historian of gender, Sunday Telegraph columnist, Zoe Strimple. Zoe, welcome to the show. Zoe, I was scrolling yesterday, then your post came up on X and my head nearly exploded. But it sounds much worse for you. You were there. Please tell us what happened.
Well, I thought I have a bit of time to myself. I'll go off to a nice arty town on the sea, and I just noticed some people going into this gallery on a side street. I thought, I'll just go in there with them and see some good local art exhibition. And then, obviously, I hadn't really read anything. I didn't pay attention to the signage, and everyone was wearing the Palestinian keffiyehs, which I still thought was like probably par for the course in Margate at an art gallery. And then I noticed there was a table full of leaflets that were, the usual but quite extreme. And then I kind of twigged that I wasn't going to like what I was about to see. I noticed a woman she was this beautiful blonde woman, and there was a gorgeous little girl with her, and it broke my heart. This woman had the Hamas triangle
Which I call the rape triangle.
Yeah.
Because that's how they targeted people.
The rape and murder triangle, yeah, which is illegal in this country, I think. Not that anyone cares. I'm
not sure if the triangle itself is, but...
I thought the triangle was... I thought it was... maybe
Palestine
not,
Action is, but...
I thought Hamas... because it was
Hamas is as a yes, of course, it's a terrorist organisation.
So
yes, support,
right.
yeah.
So I think the red triangle is considered now an explicit endorsement of Hamas. Maybe that should be triple-checked or double-checked. And, globalise the Intifada, which is banned in certain cities in Britain, but not...
That's a call to murder Jews, an out-and-out call to murder Jews. They might pretend it's not, but the Intifada is basically the death Jews, globalising it, and we have seen over the last couple of years an actual Intifada.
But none of those... It's so interesting. It was a real lesson in flipping things back in your face as a means of gaslighting. So a woman saw me after I'd gone round taking pictures and was just standing there in a kind of shocked, miserable daze, and said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" kind of thing. And I said, "Well, I just came in off the street. I'm totally shocked by what I'm seeing." And there's that woman there is wearing a Globalize the Intifada thing on her T-shirt. I was just speaking like how I usually do to people who aren't totally lunatic, even though I know these people exist. And her reaction, she was polite, to be fair, this lady.
Actually, let's have we've got a little clip here, I think.
Free Palestine.
From Hamas, yes, you're right.
From the river to the sea and globalise the Intifada.
Yeah, globalise it. You already do.
So I just want to say that is actually something today that we're going to get to, but that is her again saying globalise the Intifada. Very public.
Was it the same? I wonder if it was the same lady,
same woman today,
the blonde-haired.
Yeah, and she's very blurred in real life as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, anyway, but then I suddenly thought I didn't really come in here for a fight. I was here for a nice weekend, but. Come on, there's a war on, essentially, and this is just, I can't just stand by. Whereas the artist said to the artist, because I thought maybe they've just never met a normal Jew before. There are some Jews, Israelis, Jews, whatever, who kind of buy into all this stuff, and it's very sad and really reprehensible. And there was one of them there, actually, it turned out. But I thought maybe they've never met a normal Jewish person who finds this stuff.
Yes, over 90% of Jews believe that Jews have the right to self-determination.
And I do think it's normal. I think that is I hesitate to use the word normal, but I mean it's the Jewish homeland. If you believe never again, you don't want to why are you trying to make these people accept you in that way? And so I did. I went over and I said to him, I just want to say I'm totally shocked by your exhibition because there's Nazi imagery here, and he just was. Oh, I couldn't say anything else. It was just at me from then on. You don't mean anything you're saying. It's just Hasbara talking points. Hasbara is you know, how Jews or people explain Israeli policy outside of Israel, basically, and Israel.
It's seen as a conspiracy thing as opposed to just a word which means explaining.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just that example of his kind of this kind of microness of his obsession. You know, the exhibition had pictures of individuals ranging from, you know, Jerry Seinfeld and Simon Schama.
We're going to show some of these images now. They're walking. So we've got Jerry's, that's an IDF soldier standing on a child. No, that is a photo, that's a picture, sorry, not a particularly good one, of Seinfeld. Now, he might argue, I believe he has argued online, that, it's just the idea, this is what they call anti-Zionist, or it's not Jews, it's Zionists or whatever. Well, look, there is an American Jew, and that is what he's accusing an American Jew of in that particular painting. So it's ridiculous, this...
Well, and I just want to... There was, you know, a prominent lawyer who I passed on this to after the police told me there was nothing in it, pointed out to me that in the picture that depicts what I assume is Netanyahu naked in the style of a concentration camp victim with the words Israel scrawled across his chest on his thigh and one other place, and it has an erect penis, which is very clearly and pointedly circumcised. And when you see that detail...
Let's show that and put it as big as possible. No, we're not going to do that one.
But I mean, the fact that a police sergeant said this is legitimate, you know, criticism of it. Anyway, so this whole thing with this man was immediately horrendous and shocking. And for someone who writes controversial things and sticks to their Zionist guns in the national media, I actually hate interpersonal conflict. And I found it very horrible and stressful.
We're going to put up some more pictures whilst you're talking, by the way.
But he just kept on at me, like, really, like, got all in my face, this kind of big man with terrible breath. Hasbro talking points. You don't mean any of it. You just want to defend genocide.
Lisa and Andy there, supposedly in hock to Zionists, a.k.a. Jews.
Rachel Reeves, I think, is in there too. Oh. And you know, there's that thing where your speech is literally taken away from you, and I you know, was just like, everything I said, I couldn't say anything. And at one, I tried, you know, look, if I was black and couldn't finish that sentence. You're not black, though, are you? You're not. But of all of this, it was the the pride in the use of Nazi imagery that I found the most. I suppose, like, even me, who's used to this
you see there,
stuff.
We've got a swastika there. We've got a tongue up someone's
But he won't.
bottom.
What do you? That's Farage's. Yeah,
Farage.
And then above is a swastika, and obviously the Star of David. And you know, he said, "Yeah, he said, yeah. Well, what do you expect? Israel is the Nazis." And the thing is, what the policeman reminded me of was that because he kept saying the Israeli state, as if the Israeli state is just a random state. It is also the Jewish state, as I had to say to him, which is why it has a Star of David on its flag. And that is also the way these people manage to get around the law, because he just mostly remembered to have the two stripes making it the flag, but not everywhere. But I said that to the policeman. He said, yeah, but it was pictured next to an American flag, so it was clearly meant to be a flag.
One of the pictures there, well, that was a photo there of the flag, but there is another one of blood, and it is just very clearly a blue Star of David. Now, blue is a sort of a Jewish color, Jewish blue Star of Davids have been around for hundreds of years, if not more. So the idea that was very definitely not a flag. And of course, this is the excuse that they use. There's two things going on here. The use of Nazi imagery and invoking the Holocaust for people who've actually suffered an actual Holocaust here. And then it's a way of sort of blaming Jews. And this is why it's included, this example, within the International Holocaust definition of, because it's like, you can criticise Israel. That's not a big deal. But when you invoke the Holocaust to do it, then that arguably is when it crosses over to anti-Semitism.
It's just the funniest, it's just such a canard. Oh, but in Ash Sarkar, I was looking at her book today in a bookshop in Margate, the right to criticise Israel. Nobody like this idea that all these people want to criticise Israel in good faith.
Now he's saying, I just want to say, this is actually at the entrance. He says, come here for an anti-Semitism exhibition. So he himself is obviously knows that this is what's going to have the reaction.
This is a new thing that I've really noticed. It may not be as new as I've perceived, but there's an open mockery of people crying anti-Semitism now. So Zara Sultana on Twitter the other day, it was like disgusting. She was like, the anti-Semitism smears aren't going to work this time. I'm going to say it loud and proud. I'm an anti-Zionist. And here there was this jeering, call the police, cry anti-Semitism, call the CST, which was just, it's also in his show, the CST.
Community Service Trust, which is basically provide security at synagogues and schools at a time where we see Jews being murdered in our streets.
I brought this is the program notes, and it's the scrawl of a madman. I'm just going to read 1 or 2 lines, and you'll get this. You can ask yourself, would this seem somehow kind of incitement? You know, if you heard this, would you think, well, these people are legitimate? Okay, so these drawings are about raising consciousness about hell. Hell is still only hints for many of us, but soon we'll all know the full impact. Fascism is this fireball coming up the road. We can't go on pretending hell isn't happening, or the reasons for it aren't the real ones. Israel is the pure encapsulation of it. Zionism is this terror state's ruling ideology. Israel doesn't stand for homeland. It stands for violently appropriating someone else's home. Control, terror, violence, and lies are the forces we must see clearly and struggle against.
Yeah, well, this is incredibly conspiratorial.
This is criticism of Israel.
Yeah, this is just the legitimate criticism of a government.
This is just art.
Yeah. Exactly. So I wrote a thing a while ago. It's actually my pin on X, which is anti-Zionism is just anti-Semitism for people who want to pretend that they're not racist. That is how Jews are seeing it now. That as the violence we saw over the last few weeks across not Israelis through the world, but Jews, synagogues being attacked and bombed, and Jewish people being attacked. That has got nothing to do with Israel. And that, of course, this is exactly the kind of rhetoric that leads to Israel runs the world. This is the latest form of anti-Semitism, of course. Now, we are called Free Speech Nation. He says he's an artist. We are allowed, people, there is free expression. Now, the debate here becomes, where does it cross over into out-and-out hate? I would say it is hate. Whether that should be censored or not, I would say at the very least, he has the right to put on, if he wants to put on, and if that particular space wants to hold something that many people, many Jews would consider violently anti-Semitic in its imagery and disgusted by it. If they want to proudly stand by that, I guess that's their right in this society. If it doesn't lead to incitement, that's a different argument. You, bravely, have the right to call it out. We have the right to call it out on our TV show, and let the chips may fall as they will.
I mean, you raise a very interesting point here, and because I was reflecting on what I want the role of the police to be in this, and I did notice that my kind of instinct was, you know, the police do something, because this is not. And I think part of me always thinks about how in Germany this kind of imagery is absolutely not allowed. You can't just have swastikas all over the place, and you know that's just not the case here. But I think that because the fact that the police's reach has been expanded so much, and I don't think in a good way, and the focus, they've become these people that are meant to look into, you know, hate crimes, which puts them in this weird position, and lots of bad faith actors are taking advantage, be they people claiming Islamophobia when there isn't any, or as a way of legitimizing anti-Semitism, or people who say there's transphobia when it's to other people may not seem to be so. And
someone saying that a man can't be a woman,
or misgendering or whatever. You know, these things we know these have been got immediate, kind of clear police response. The issues to do with glorification of terror on the marches. So there is this hinterland that the police have now got themselves into, and it's way above their, I would say pay grade. That sounds condescending. I mean, it's not really the kind of what you want from a policeman, which is to go out and stop violence and to, you know, crime and to keep the streets literally safe. And they don't really seem to be doing that. So instead, they're charged with all of this stuff. I suppose, yes, I'm not a free speech absolutist because I worry about incitement. That is within the law. I suppose what I would need to see to be satisfied that this is just okay free speech is that we see the exact same exhibition with pictures of Muhammad that are disrespectful, perhaps disrespectful, you know, otherwise.
I'll get drawing. Well done. Thank you so much for coming in. Well done for standing up and stating your position and using your free speech within that exhibition. I know it's horrible. I've been there myself.
Well, it's nice. At least we do live in a country. You know, I do feel like my speech is relatively free.
Absolutely. Well, so massive round of applause, please, for Zoe Trimble. GB News has approached Kent Police and Matthew Collins for comment, but they have yet to respond. A Kent Police spokesman said the force had received a report of a concern raising concerns about the subject matter, and inquiries into the report are ongoing. In a statement, Matthew Collins has said, "All my drawings are direct and clear. The target is always Zionism. Zionism is not Jews. It is a political ideology. When people are horrified by the genocide being committed against Palestinians, they do not condemn Jews. Many of those horrified are in fact Jewish people. The condemnation is against the politics of genocide. The name of that politics is Zionism." Next on Free Speech Nation, why does the left appear more politically distressed than the right? New research suggests it's not just ideology, but psychology that is driving the divide. See you in a couple of minutes. Big round of applause again.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Late Edition with me, Alex Armstrong. Listen, the world watercress eating champion has admitted he actually hates it. He hates watercress and he dreads the competition every year. 58-year-old Glenn Walsh has become something of a local legend in Hampshire after winning the title at the town's annual Watercress Festival 17 years in a row. But despite his record-breaking run, Walsh says the leafy green is far from his favourite food, describing it as peppery, stalky, and not really enjoyable. Top man. Instead, he credits his success to having what he calls a big gob and large hands, plus a fiercely competitive streak that keeps him coming back. Joining me now is the man himself, watercress world champion, watercress eating world champion, should I say, Glenn Walsh. Glenn, thanks for joining me this evening. I have to ask you, Glenn, what got you into this in the first place?
That's a good question. It was a long time ago now, 2002. When the first festival happened, it was just a celebration of because Alresford is the watercress centre of the world, basically. You know, they at the moment they do so many bags every week. You know, as 500. Well, 500,000 a week go in the whole country. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. But it happened back then, and it wasn't an eating competition then. It was quite a small event. And it was just a case of the rugby boys, after a few beers, going, we've got all this green stuff, what are we going to do with it? And we thought, well, let's eat as much as we can. Let's have a go at that. And that didn't end up very well at all. And then after that, we decided, let's be a bit more sensible and have 80 grams and eat it as quick as you can. And that was a little bit better.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. I am now joined by the psychotherapist and author Jonathan Alpert. Jonathan, welcome to the show. We only have a couple of minutes. I read an article which I found fascinating this week about the left and why they take this, the political left, why they take it so personally. What have you uncovered?
Josh, we have a real problem in our country. We have one side of our political aisle that, in my view, is unhinged, and they're celebrating the deaths of people like Charlie Kirk. They're rooting for our President Trump to get shot. And for me, as a therapist, that's a real problem, and we need to address it. I wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal a few months ago about TDS, and I made it very clear that TDS is not an actual diagnosis. However, as a therapist, I do have real concerns about some of my patients. They have a obsessional component to their thinking. They're highly anxious about Trump, and some even went so far as to have murderous, homicidal thoughts about Trump. So we do have a real problem in our country.
Yeah, so this is it. So you've got people on the left who want to like murder their political opponents in your therapy sessions. Yet the people on the right are kind of like just disagree with them. So what's the core reason, do you think, that for this case?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the left, people have become so fixated on Trump and the opposing side. And on the right, I don't quite see that. I see people who may dislike the other side. So during the last presidency of Biden, people disliked him. They didn't like Kamala Harris, but never did it rise to the level of wanting to see these figures killed. They recognize that Biden's a spouse, a grandfather, a friend, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas on the left, they don't seem to understand that. They don't understand that Donald Trump is a family man, he's a father, he's a grandfather, and therein lies the difference. And that's of great concern to me as a psychotherapist.
Yeah, so and very quickly, because we don't have very much time, but what do you think the reason is for that, though?
Well, I mean, in short, maybe they need to get a life. There's more to life than politics, but politics for some people has become part of their identity. They live it, they breathe it, they can't even sleep because of politics. So it's just become so much part of their character and identity. And when I see these patients, I do try to help them recognize that there are other things to life: careers, family, kids, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Of course, some people would say the right has been inclined, certainly traditionally, to violence. There is violence on the right as well. I wonder how much of it is because the left see themselves morally, and it ties into their egos as being good people.
Yeah, and we've certainly seen violence on the right as well. But over the past couple of years, it does seem like we're seeing more of that on the left. We've had here in New York City, where I am, we have destruction. We have people marching and the No Kings protests. I had an
We've
experience.
seen it and we feature it all the time. Thank you so. I'm so sorry we don't have longer because it's such a fascinating conversation. A massive round of applause. And I'm just going to say thank you for joining us at home. We've got Alex Armstrong next. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We'll see some clear spells tonight, but it's all changed through Monday as further wet and windy weather spreads across the north of the UK. The south, though, will hold on to some high pressure. In the meantime, a weak weather front will sink southwards through the rest of Sunday evening time, giving a little light and patchy rain in places, but largely just cloudy skies for a time. And overnight, it will generally be dry. However, wintry showers will continue across northern Scotland, combined with some strong blustery winds. It will be a cold night here. Temperatures -2, -3 in the Glens of Scotland. Towns and cities generally holding up just above freezing, but a patchy frost and some fog patches first thing on Monday morning almost anywhere across the UK. But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland, though some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well. Some fog across the central part of England and Wales. Some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 9 p.m. I'm Alex Armstrong. Tonight on the show, how would you feel if this was built in your back garden and you were powerless to stop it?
When you look at this, that's 60 feet high. It's just absurd. What sort of perverse decisions went into that?
Honestly, it's absolutely appalling what's happened there in Astley. Well, I went to Wigan to speak to residents who've had their lives completely destroyed and have even been threatened with legal action by the council just for speaking out. The true story of what's going on is more shocking than you could possibly believe. Elsewhere on the show, should tube drivers indeed be paid more than surgeons? Well, RMT Union wants its drivers to work a maximum of 32 hours a week, meaning they'd be on £43 an hour beating out surgeons. Is it fair? Also, a new surge of illegal migrants are coming over to Britain, and yet another sign that this crisis is nowhere near over. When will we get a grip? And
One is incomprehensible. We as Australian Muslims. Get him out of here. He's the president.
Sky News Australia superstar Danica Di Giorgio joins me to talk about Prime Minister Anthony Albanese being ran out of a mosque. And
don't put your hands on me. It's not racist to raise issues like this.
These people
it's not. We're unmasking the violent past of a migrant who abused a senior Conservative MP.
In a Daily Express exclusive, a brave journalist, Zach, who's been here before, joins me again to expose a violent criminal who escaped Romania after chasing children with an axe there, who's now living in a tent in Park Lane. A truly mad story. Trust me, you've only just seen the tip of the iceberg there. And joining me on this show tonight, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, and political commentator Andy Swells. And what's going on here?
Pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life.
It's not AI, believe it or not. Huge 2 hours coming up. Your evening is just about to get started, but first we're going to get your news with Bethany Elsey.
Alex, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 9:02. Iran is warning it will destroy energy facilities across the Gulf and completely shut off the Strait of Hormuz following an ultimatum from the US president. Donald Trump has threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if the key shipping lane isn't reopened within 48 hours. Meanwhile, more than 180 people have been injured in southern Israel after Iran bombarded 2 towns yesterday, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying it's a miracle no one was killed. A further 15 have been hospitalised after cluster munition hit Tel Aviv. Israel has blown up a main bridge linking southern Lebanon to the rest of the country, it says, to target Hezbollah. More than 1,000 people have been killed there and 1 million displaced across Lebanon since the conflict began. A senior cabinet minister says there's no evidence to back up Israel's claim that Iran has long-range missiles capable of reaching the UK. Israel's army chief says Tehran has developed weapons capable of travelling up to 2,500 miles, putting some European capitals within range. But the Housing Secretary Steve Reed insists the UK is safe.
There is no assessment that I'm aware of that Iran is either targeting or could, even if they wanted to, target the UK directly. If they did, and there is no assessment of this, we have one of the finest militaries in the world.
It's reported the boss of a major energy firm in the UK is warning that fuel prices may be inescapable if the war in the Middle East continues. The chief executive of Centrica says global oil supplies are down by 20% because of the conflict, but the government says there's no need to ration fuel. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will hold an emergency Cobra meeting tomorrow to discuss plans to mitigate the economic impact of the war. In other news, a police officer from Kent who was involved in a car crash when responding to an emergency call has died. PC Bradley Cork, who was 27, passed away yesterday after the incident on Thursday. A second officer was injured and remains critically ill in hospital. The force says Bradley's bravery, dedication and passion for helping others will not be forgotten. And in sport, Manchester City have won the Carabao Cup, beating Arsenal 2-0 in the final at Wembley. Midfielder Nico O'Reilly scored both goals within 5 minutes in the second half. And the Tyne and Wear derby had to be paused in the second half after discriminatory abuse from within the crowd was directed at a Sunderland player. Newcastle has vowed to track down those responsible. And despite a major police presence outside St James's Park in Newcastle, clashes broke out between supporters. Northumbria Police says 3 people were arrested. And it's also reported 1 fan had to be taken to hospital. Sunderland won that match 2-1. You're up to date. Let's get back to Alex.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Tonight, a story of David versus Goliath. How would you react if a monstrous warehouse appeared in your own backyard and you had no power to stop it? Well, I went to Astley, where it's controlled by Wigan Council, to meet residents whose lives have literally been turned upside down, who've even faced threats of legal action from the council just for speaking out about this atrocity. The reality of what's happening is far more shocking than you could ever imagine. Here in Astley, which is covered by Wigan Council, you can see why I'm here. It's behind me. Before this monstrosity was built and approved by Wigan Council, this was a farm. Horses coming up to properties behind. Now it's going to be a warehouse, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is the proposal for industrial-sized vehicles, units there to store some quite heavy machinery. And it's literally right on the back of the residents' homes here. I've come to speak to them to find out the impact, how this has happened, and what they'd like to have done about it.
Behind the back of my fence, it was complete farmland. We had horses coming up to the back of the fence. We had cows in there, sheep. The actual farm was where Applewood Farm is now, and it was absolutely gorgeous farmland. We've got a balcony which was overlooking all the fence. We built a small fence with a gate so we could walk out there with the dog, take the dog for long walks, and the children used to play in that field. We used to spend many hours just walking around the fields. Yeah. But when they built the bunds, what they did was all the rain started running down the bunds and ended up in my garden. So I think it was just about December, coming out into the garden, and it was knee high. I was frightened. The water was coming further towards the house, and I thought it's going to come in the house, and I thought that the council could come down and have a look at it, so, you know, help me.
It's just opened onto a field, right? This used to just open onto a field. Now, what is this path going to be? Do you know?
Nobody's told me what it's going to be. Nobody's told me if it's going to be cars.
So you could, for all you know, you could have lorries driving down here on this road.
Concerned about lorries, concerned about people walking. I don't know who's going to have access to this. Do I need to hire my fence? Do I need to put a lock on my gate? Do I need to lock everything in my garden? Because I don't know who's going to have access to this. Yeah, major concerns about the noise. My daughter, she's 21 years old, she works shifts. She's in that bedroom there, and already she's complaining about the noise, and that's just from the work trucks what are going round. So if it's 24/7 operational, she's going to have massive impact on her sleeping. It's going to have massive impact on her mental health. Because if she doesn't sleep, then, you know, like she's not going to be fit for work, and I've got real concerns about the 24/7 operation.
So we're now on a new build estate here, and these owners weren't made aware, or they say they weren't made aware of what was going to be built here. Now you can see the scale. Brand new builds, beautiful properties. You can see the scale of these, not just one warehouses, but two, and really the lack of cover that they get. Developers have put in here to protect their property from this monstrosity, or should I say two monstrosities that are literally jutting into the land here. Now, had they looked at previous planning applications, they wouldn't have seen these plans on there, which is part of the damning part of this story. And as you can see, you turn the floodlights on here, and what you're going to get all night, all day, is just noise and light into your brand new property. I have to say, I've never seen anything quite like it.
It was all farmers' fields. He would collect the hay, the cattle would graze in the field. There was a prize-winning herd from the sister farm just on the other side of the school there. But the early plans were for low-lying buildings, single-storey buildings. Everybody accepted that. But this, when you look at this, that's 60 feet high. It's just absurd. What sort of perverse decisions went into that? How can a local authority, a planning department, allow that literally 32 metres from the bottom of somebody's garden? It's absolutely, it's crazy.
And I don't know if those of you watching this interview at the moment will be able to get a full sense of the scale of this thing. But all I can say is, it feels like you're arriving at an airport.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
That's a good way of putting it, that.
Yeah. Because that's the scale of this building.
Yeah.
It looks like an airport here.
Yeah, it does. And the lighting, which they've just installed, and they were testing it the other night, the lighting is like being in an airport. I don't know whether you've ever seen a big international airport at night, but that is, good heavens, you could see it on the dark side of the moon. But the light that comes from that, it floodlights the whole of the area. It's like being on a a major football ground on match day. It's absolutely ludicrous. The light pollution that is going to generate is just off the scale.
Well, that's the other way to put it, a football stadium.
Yeah.
That's the sort of size you're looking at for a small, medium-sized football stadium.
Yeah, it is, it is. And you look at it, it's just absurd that it's ever been allowed.
That is just part one of the conversations I had today. I will bring you the next part at 10 o'clock this evening. And trust me, this story is just the tip of the iceberg from what those local residents told me. This whole thing is utterly disgraceful. And let me tell you, Wigan Council have a lot to answer for, and we will not be letting this go. I will be following up with those residents as this story continues, because if it's happening to them, you can bet your bottom dollar that it could happen to you at home and where you live, and it will be happening to other people around the country. That's why this story should get national coverage. I feel so sorry for those people. I want to thank Astley Action Group, who hosted me today and helped me meet with the local residents. They are very, very good people. Thank you for letting us into your homes today. We'll bring you more footage in just under an hour. Let me go to my panel here. I've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks with me, journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, and political commentator Andy Twelves. Linda, I'll start with you. What was your reaction when you saw that footage?
It's absolutely hideous. I mean, I know that in this country you can't protect a view, actually, under the law. We were talking earlier. There's only one view in the whole country that's protected. That's a view from Richmond Park, and that's protected by an Act of Parliament. The fact of the matter, though, is it's not just about the view. It's about the hideous noise pollution, light pollution. And actually, when you build something of that scale, you get terrible problems with rats and vermin because the infrastructure is fractured underneath the building and everyone will have more rats. I've suffered from that problem with new buildings near me. Now, what baffles me is how it got to this point without anyone actually doing anything about it, because this would have been on the local plan for that area. And the other thing I find really worrying is the quote from the MP, Michael Wheeler, who says, "A better job could have been done by the council to consult the hundreds of residents who've been impacted." That is a very, very weak response.
Let me tell you, Linda, and part two, the residents that I spoke to are going to tell you exactly how they got away with this. And I'm telling you now, it will make you all shiver at home because, as I said, if it happened to them, it can happen to you.
I'm just going to say very quickly, of course, the MP, strictly speaking, can't do very much because it is the issue for the local authority. It doesn't even get to a much higher level. If you ever got to a judicial review, then it would be different. Nevertheless, the MP is capable of effectively campaigning for local residents, and that's clearly what he should have been doing in this instance.
I think the viewers need to know that this is a Labour-run council. Wigan is a Labour-run council. Now, they wouldn't dare put that next to a migrant hotel or a migrant camp, would they? Because it might offend or it might upset them. We have two-tier planning laws and two-tier enforcement. It's clear now. If I build an extension at home and I built it a metre too high, the local authority would want me to rip that down at my own expense, and it would be pretty harsh and quick. They would want that done. This is just absurd. How this has got through. The man there, the resident, said it's perverse to think how anyone could allow this to happen. Now, I'm not suggesting it happened here, but I'll tell you how things like this happen up and down the country, and that's corruption, brown envelopes and corruption. Now, whoever signed that off knew that was going to upset those residents. They knew it was going to devalue their properties and make their life hell. Now, secondly, enforcement. I've got a pub. I've had a noise problem before. Now, I was threatened to be shut down. I had to act. Now, if I didn't act, they would have took my pub off me. Now, that noise pollution, I bet, will go unchecked, or they will brush it under the carpet like it's a necessary part of the community.
Crazy part on the noise pollution, Adam, is that the residents are having to pay for their own acoustic testing because it was done by some sort of machine before. They just calculated it on a computer. No environmental impact assessment was done before this thing was put up, and that has raised serious concerns about how the council have got to this. Andy, what do you think?
I think it just shows again that, you know, big business and big corporate interests don't care about local communities. I think on the point that...
but what about the councillors? They've got a moral and ethical duty to protect them. They're not big business.
I agree. I don't think the council have done particularly well on this, but I don't think it's a Labour thing. You know, in Sutton and Ashfield, actually, where Lee Anderson, host of the channel, is from, it's Ashfield Independents, which are a quote-unquote non-political group, you know, slightly left of centre, but not really. They erected a massive Amazon warehouse and really disrupted a lot of the local environment, a lot of local residents. You know, that's just one example off the top of my head. That happens up and down the country. The planning and licensing system across the country is broken, whether it's nightlife and hospitality or whether it's stuff like this. You know, I think that's well established on both sides of the House of Commons now. I think this is, you know, a really sad example of it damaging a community. Zoe Bread, who's an online influencer, has done some really, really great independent journalism on this, and I think she deserves credit. And I just hope they get the champion in GB News and in, you know, influencers like Zoe Bread that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I'll say this. Coming up at 10 o'clock, I spoke to a group of residents. They were so welcoming and just really wanted to get this story out into the... sorry, my shirt's all over the place. Bit scruffy. I haven't had very much sleep, as you might be able to tell. But I tell you what, those local people have really suffered. Rats, houses shaking, flooding, all of this. And you saw the pictures before of the field, how beautiful it used to be. You know, that's what they bought. And they didn't sign up to this. You might be going, well, they should have seen this, they should have seen that. There's a lot of confusion as to how this planning permission was given. The public consultation deemed wholly inadequate. Plans before that were 20 years old, that the local residents were fine with, like much smaller buildings. How a 60-foot airport-like building was ever deemed acceptable to be put up in residential area is absolutely beyond me. And I genuinely hope that something can be done, and I hope we can give this footage and this report to someone like Steve Reed, the Housing Secretary, because this really deserves national attention. And I worry that the government are going to relax planning laws, that this could happen to more places. I've had a flood of messages today from people telling me this is happening in their towns too. So, unfortunately, not the end of the story. Very briefly.
But very briefly, it's not always just about, as Andy has pointed out, just about big business or jobs or anything else. It's about community. Yeah. It's about protecting communities. If we want to have a happy, cohesive society, we need to get this sorted.
You're absolutely right, Linda. You're absolutely right. Aidan Thatcher, Wigan's Director of Planning, has previously said this. This planning application went through our planning consultation and committee process. The final plans include landscaping, which will help screen and soften the appearance and mitigates the impact on nearby properties. We will continue to monitor the site throughout the construction, ensuring this development, bringing new jobs and investment into the area, is delivered properly. I have got footage of some of that mitigation. I'll let you decide in the next hour whether you think it's adequate. In response to the independent audit in relation to Astley Business Park, Wigan Council published this below. In June 2024, Wigan Council approved a planning application for a warehouse at Astley Business Park, a site designated for employment use since 2006. A standard consultation was carried out, including notices, a newspaper advert and letters to nearby properties, which resulted in 96 objections, all reviewed by the Planning Committee. No legal challenges were made during the 6-week period, and concerns only arose in spring 2025 after construction began. The council engaged with residents, indeed, and the developer and commissioned an independent audit by planning officers, Society Enterprises, which confirms that the planning process complied with national policy and legal requirements. The audit noted that some nearby homes predated the site's designation, while many were built afterward. It also identified opportunities for greater transparency, which the council has committed to addressing. Construction is ongoing, and the council continues to monitor compliance with planning conditions, including landscaping, bund heights and drainage improvements to address flooding concerns. The council acknowledges residents' concerns, and the council encourages ongoing communication between residents and the developer and reporting of any planning breaches. Wigan Council respects residents' right to campaign and express views. Planning permission was granted lawfully, a position which was supported by the independent audit and cannot be reversed. The council remains committed to a constructive dialogue, implementing audit recommendations and ensuring safe, transparent engagement as the development process progresses. Listen, I'm really looking forward, after reading all that out to you, to show you what is coming next, and to tell you through what's coming next to that site and to see whether you think that any of that right of reply there from those individuals is adequate. And trust me, that is just the tip of the iceberg I've shown you. Wait till 10 o'clock. Well, we're going to move on now to a Great British giveaway. Spring is finally on the way. How would you like to have, enjoy the countryside whenever you want? Brand new camper van to be won, plus 25 grand in tax-free cash. Here's all the details.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van, worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
As I said, more on that developing story in Wigan, Astley, should I say, coming up at 10 o'clock. But next, UK and French patrols are scrambling to track small boats in the Channel with a fresh surge of migrants expected within hours. But coming up next on the show, tube drivers are threatening once again to bring London to a standstill. And could they be paid more than surgeons under extraordinary new demands by the RMT? That's next on Alex Armstrong Tonight.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh, no, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tube drivers are threatening to paralyse London with yet another round of strikes. But they could soon be earning more than surgeons, apparently. Industrial action planned for next week has been called off after Transport for London agreed to consider a fresh list of union demands, including a 32-hour working week. With tube drivers already on more than £71,000 a year, that would work out at roughly £43 an hour, putting them ahead of surgeons, psychologists, barristers and even finance bosses. At a time when commuters are already being squeezed, just how much more are Londoners expected to pay to keep the tube running? And should tube drivers be paid more than surgeons? Well, I'm now joined by political commentator Stella Shanti-Kidu and political commentator Lee Harris. Welcome, both of you. Stella, I will start with you, or maybe I'll start with Lee, because Lee's there, actually. Lee, tell us what you think about this story.
Oh, it's absolutely bonkers, Alex. I mean, it's just another case of greedy, out of touch, insensitive, selfish RMT unions that are, you know, bleeding us dry so they can have a cushy life while the rest of us suffer. They're already paid an absolute fortune for what they do. Tube drivers, as you already said, are one of the highest paid occupations in the country. It's extremely incestuous. They rarely advertise these jobs outside of the TfL, so none of us could easily get a job as a tube driver, and they're doing this at a time where, as you said, there is a cost of living crisis. Everybody is absolutely skint. The optics of this is awful. So I really vehemently disagree with this, and I'm sure if you ask a lot of the public how they feel about this, especially right now, when I think in 2026 the tube fares went up by around, I think I've got it here, 5.8% already. And I just don't think they're going to be able to bring the public along with them on this one. It seems to me like this is a very short-sighted way of putting themselves eventually out of a job. And I say, bring on automation as quickly as possible.
OK, that's what Lee thinks. Stella, what do you make of that?
So Lee is saying that tube drivers are selfish because they want to make a fortune out of us. I have to note that there is nothing about pay increases in the RMT press release and in their demands and in any of the write-ups I have seen, apart the one from the Telegraph. This was not supposed to be a strike about higher pay. This was very specifically about condensed working hours, which would be imposed from above. And all the tube strikers were asking for is that they wanted to talk about it with the London Underground. And that is now happening. And it has to do with fatigue and safety that a lot of workers are worried they will be facing if they have to work for long hours, especially through the night. Now, you said that they are selfish and that they want to make fortunes. Do you have the same thing to say to all of the massive corporations which will be profiteering from the oil crisis that is going on right now, who profiteered during COVID, during the pandemic, pushed all of their prices higher and then kept them there and just bagged the rest of the profit? Do you have the same thing to say? Or is it a case that because we are told that we have no power over how businesses run themselves, we just have to lie down and take the cost of living crisis and the inflation that they are causing, while we are asking workers to basically accept any kind of working conditions because somebody else said so?
Lee?
No, but I think you've got to draw the line somewhere. I mean, over the last 5 years, tube drivers' pay has gone from around 56,000 to just over 71,000, and to effectively put them on a higher hourly rate than surgeons, I mean, that's just obscene. To be a surgeon, I mean, it's incredibly high stress. It takes 10 to 15 years to train and qualify to be a surgeon. Lives are at stake, and to put tube drivers on a similar level of pay, as I said, it's just obscene. This is taxpayer subsidised service. This is our money, and I think we do have the right to comment on whether tube drivers should be paid this much. It is it's wrong, and I don't think it should be allowed. I think that if anything, we should be slimming down the service itself. We should be trying to reduce fares for people who are struggling, and we should be making it so it's fair. So the pay is relative to the job that they are doing. I have a tiny little bit of experience with this. I used to work in the rail sector industry. I've actually sat in the cab of a train and been shown what it takes to drive a proper train, which is actually a bit more complicated than a tube train. There's something called a dead man's handle, which you put your foot on and you just go forward and backwards. And there are traffic lights, which I think we all understand what green and red means. Now, I'm not downplaying it too much. There is a little bit more to it than that, but it is a pretty straightforward, easy job. The pay is obscene and it should stop.
Stella, 2 questions for you. Do you think that tube drivers should be paid more than surgeons? And what do you think about services like the DLR, which are fully automated?
I think that everybody should be paying as much as is required for them to have a good lifestyle. Frankly, I would be giving a pay rise to a lot more sectors. It is not something that is currently feasible. But my question is, why should we accept higher prices from corporations who are profiteering off of us? And why can't workers then turn back to the same places, to the same corporations, and demand more money? I do not understand that. But this has nothing to do, pay rise has nothing to do with the tube strikes. There is not a single mention of pay in the RMT press release. This is a complete fabrication and manipulation of the news. And what was your second question, Alex? I'm sorry.
DLR, the Docklands Light Railway, which is fully automated.
That's fantastic, but are you honestly telling me that you are feeling comfortable with having all of these services completely empty of other human beings who will have the technical knowledge to help us when something wrong happens?
Lee, what do you think of that?
Yes, because they're holding us to ransom. We're having, lots of strike action. They can effectively, they have a monopoly over the transport within London, so they can effectively do what they want.
Energy companies have a monopoly over an energy. Supermarkets have a monopoly over us eating. They just
really
get to bag the profit. Why are you not angry at them, Lee?
Because we live in a capitalist society, and if people can make profit and
so
do
in
so,
a capitalist society, the rich get
Stella,
richer.
just 1 second, Stella. Just 1 second. You're comparing apples and pears. Private company. If TfL was completely private and they didn't require any money from the taxpayer at all, I don't think I'd have as much of an issue with it. But this is our money, and this is a transport network that we all use, and they are literally holding us all to ransom. The London economy does depend on on the London Underground running well. And if you take out the unions and take out all the stress that they create by going on strike and automate it, that's going to be very good for the economy. It's going to work a lot better. I think it just can't come soon enough. They're literally writing themselves out of a job. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen even sooner if TfL staff are going to constantly threaten strike action, hold us to ransom, and demand these ludicrous pay conditions. And I know that you're saying it's not a direct pay rise. You are right to say that, but they're not stupid, Stella. They know exactly what they're doing. They're demanding exactly the same pay for less hours. I mean, that's fantastic. I run a small business. I'm struggling at the moment. I'm not afraid to admit it. We are really struggling in the private sector.
Stop being a capitalist, Lee, and stop trying to push down other people's living standards.
Push them down, Stella. They're already being paid a wedge.
All right, Stella, final word to you, and we got.
You want a pay decrease, then, basically. You want people whose families depend on that salary to earn less money, because that's what would happen if they would have a different working schedule and they were paying less money. In any case, this has to do about safety and dignity. And you know what? You should have a problem about the extremely rich people getting even more extremely rich, rather than having some working class people with technical skills. What's your problem with working class people with technical skills having well-paid jobs? Working class people should be paid £71,000. They are worth £71,000. And if a finance boss gets to have 10 times that, then why shouldn't someone who is working on a train?
All right, Lee, give me your response in 10 seconds, please.
We're paying for it. They're not a private sector company. This is coming out of taxpayers' money. They're holding us to ransom. It's utterly ludicrous it's got this far anyway. Like I said, if it was a private company, I'd have less of an issue with it. And I'm not saying that working class people shouldn't be able to earn a wedge. Absolutely, good for them. Go for it. But this is a debate that we all need to have because this is a public sector organisation that is funded by us.
Lee, Stella, thank you both very much for a very hearty debate there. An RMT spokesperson said this dispute is about the imposition of unacceptable rostering arrangements on our members, and we have suspended our action after making progress in talks. The 32-hour week demand remains standing policy of the union across the rail industry. All right, coming up, the Australian Prime Minister was chased out of Australia's largest mosque on Friday by Muslims during Eid prayers. But next, coming up with nearly 600 migrant crossings in the Channel in just 5 days and more expected tomorrow, when is the government going to get a grip on our borders? That's next.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Therese has been bringing some very unsettled weather to the Canary Islands in recent days, and we'll continue to see some strong winds and potentially some flooding here over the next day or two, particularly for the western Canary Islands, but there'll be some showers for Madeira too. Iberia, though, will settle down with plenty of sunshine for Spain and Portugal. 1 or 2 showers for the central Med, particularly southern parts of Italy, the Balkans, Greece and Turkey. A few thunderstorms perhaps as well. But the worst of the weather, the thundery showers at least, will be across Tenerife over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We'll see some clear spells tonight, but it's all changed through Monday as further wet and windy weather spreads across the north of the UK. The south, though, will hold on to some high pressure. In the meantime, a weak weather front will sink southwards through the rest of Sunday evening time, giving a little light and patchy rain in places, but largely just cloudy skies for a time. And overnight it will generally be dry. However, wintry showers will continue across northern Scotland, combined with some strong blustery winds. It will be a cold night here. Temperatures -2, -3 in the Glens of Scotland. Towns and cities generally holding up just above freezing, but a patchy frost and some fog patches first thing on Monday morning almost anywhere across the UK. But across northern Scotland, those showers will be there first thing Monday morning, some of them on the heavy side. Largely cloudy skies across the rest of Scotland, though some hazy spells of sunshine in between there, particularly across Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, a similar picture. Some patchy frost in places as well, some fog across the central part of England and Wales, some hazy spells of sunshine, but largely dry conditions for most of us. Through Monday morning, cloud will thicken across Northern Ireland, Scotland, rain arriving across northwest Scotland as we head towards lunchtime. This slowly spreading its way eastwards through into the afternoon, turning heavy over the Highlands, generally cloudier skies further south and east. The best of the sunshine holding on across central and southern parts of England and Wales. Temperatures here 15, 16 Celsius, starting to turn colder across northwest Scotland. On Tuesday, rain continues to slowly push southwards into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, this turning heavy over the hills. Southeast England holding on to the best of the dry weather. Here, temperatures reaching again around 15 or 16 degrees, turning colder for everyone by the middle of the week. Temperatures back down towards average.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB Loyalty Points is here. They're our way of saying thank you for spending time with GB News. Through commenting on your say, voting in You Decide polls and shaping the debate, you can earn GB Loyalty Points. Unlock rewards, reach milestones and climb leaderboards. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be part of them. Get started by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/loyalty points.
Channel crossings are set to surge once again, with UK and French authorities bracing for a fresh wave of small boats, piling yet more pressure on the government to get a grip on the migrant crisis. GB News counted at least 55 migrants arriving into Dover this morning alone, bringing the total to more than 65,000 who've crossed the channel since Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. Nearly 600 migrants have arrived in just the past 5 days as people smugglers exploit calmer conditions in the channel. And with winds expected to ease further, officials are warning of even more arrivals tomorrow, raising fresh questions over whether Britain's borders are really under control. Well, I'm now joined by journalist David Shipley. David, this situation is not abating, is it? The Labour government have had a policy of smash the gangs. They've had a policy to crack down with new visa restrictions, with new rules, but it doesn't seem to be deterring the migrants.
Well, it's not, and it's not going to. The reason these asylum seekers come here and then cross the channel illegally is because once they get here, they've got a very, very high chance of being granted asylum, however implausible their story is. And then even if they don't get granted asylum, they will almost certainly not be deported. And while they're here, they get to live at our expense. You know, they're housed, they're given food, they are also given discounted trips around the country and all sorts of things. And eventually they'll be able to work either in the illegal economy or the legal economy. So of course they're going to keep coming. And until those rules are changed, that's just going to keep happening.
David, we've also seen concerning reports that migrants are starting to choose Belgium as a place to take off to come to Britain. Should we brace for arrivals from Belgium and start to think about handing over cash to Belgian authorities too?
Well, what I understand is happening is they're sort of running a bus service. So they'll go along the Belgian coast, picking people up and then pick up people from northern France and then turn across the channel. And what's important to remember is actually, by the way, all of these small boats get intercepted by Border Force. We're actually intercepting all of these crossings, and then they're taken off their small boat, put safely on the Border Force boat and brought ashore. So if we wanted to, we could be taking them somewhere else. But yeah, they're coming from Belgium at the moment. I understand there's also, we're now seeing an uptick in people using the lorry route